Saintess summons skeletons by morn. Chapter 231, Lousy Moonlight Sculptor. After 3 nights of relentless slaughter, Sofia, Irat, and Irat were slowly headed for the coast where they would take the exact same route they had used to reach Savoln while avoiding Skirich. They flew in relative silence, and Sofia took the opportunity to go over her status a bit. 1 night for 113 levels of debt. 3 nights for 37 more levels. The experience penalty really isn't playing around. The last level took almost 100,000 kills. Total progress for this guy, 12.8%. Not bad. The classless skills are leveling nicely at least. I still haven't looked at any of the new keywords, I'll keep that for after I've had a good rest. Name, Sofia Affinareth. Age, 21. Class, Necromancer. Level, 221. Health, 2420/2420. Stamina, 4030/2487. Mana, 9553/361 Main specialization, Eclipse Skeleton. Alteration chance, 7%. Secondary specialization, Heat Death. Active skills, 6/8. Spine of the Black Sun, level 200. Heal Undead, level 200. Summon Blood, level 200. Maiden Banshee, level 221, LV.221. Graveyard of the Righteous, level 200. False Immortality, level 3. Passive skills, 6/8. Blessing of the Deep, 2/4. Valkyria's Rehofen of Sorrow. Exalted Exoskeleton. Venerable Physique of the Primeval Void, Doors of the Light Forging Realm. Bone Dominus, level 2. Iridian Rot. Classless skills, 9/9. Fast Reading, level 58. Way of the Fool, level 26. Sprint, level 38. Identify, level 2. Mana Manipulation. Evasion, level 75. Radiance, level 51. Quintessential. 1 with Suffering. Special skills, 1. The Book of Skeletons. Summoned Heroes, 3/4. LV.221 Parath, Holy Boneplate Mauler Eclipse Skeleton. LV.221 Alith. LV.221 Book of Skeletons, Book. Mark of Affinareth. It's starting to become difficult to all keep track of. Let's check how the staff is doing. I've been spending all my extra mana on it, especially when I was still learning Draconic inside the Spire. It should be at least 20% done. Sofia's Shadow Scepter. Must be primed to unlock advanced functions, 524/097/086/10000000000 mana. Basic functions, fueled by ambient mana or the user's if lack thereof. Absorbs the backlash of forcefully cancelled channeling. Cannot be damaged by the user's magic. Cannot be forcefully unequipped. Attracts and absorbs weak magical projectiles aimed at the user. Advanced functions, requires priming. Halves channeling time. Halves the mana cost per second of sustained magic. Currently holding, Midanisit Catalyst, Legendary. It's almost halfway done. Yeah, this is why I picked Rubedu, so much mana. If this speed is anything to go by, I could probably finish this in about 2 weeks by using the Sun Ritual to its full extent. Well, go see Velour first, then I need to finish the priming as soon as possible. The group made their way back without troubles. They teleported from one city to the other, and arrived in Huoe so early in the morning, after a bit over a week of expedition. Rather than rushing to Valor's home, Irat invited them to come and wait in a lounge at the Red Carpet's auction house while he did the paperwork for his job and went to look for his higher UPS. He came back after about an hour and led them to his office. Sorry to disappoint, boss not here. Neither is Elder Orvad or the Saintess, they still haven't returned from when Elder Orvad left us. The only information I managed to get is that apparently the boss gave Red Carpet plans for a few months in advance, which means he probably does not expect to be back before then. What can we do then? As weird as it is to say, come back in a few months. I'll be in this building most of the time, so you can come to this office or just ask the reception for me if I'm out, and I'll keep you updated whenever you want. If you can make a copy of the dragon handprint, I'll show it to the boss as soon as he comes back so you'll get his opinion even if he leaves again and you miss him. Sure, I can do that, thank you again, Irat. It's a bit of a pain to sculpt, but I can do it. Just doing my job. You can leave the hand here or at the reception when you're done. If there's nothing else, I'm gonna go. I left without warning, so my wife is gonna kill me. Tough luck, Snakeman. I think we're done here unless you know where I can get these ingredients, Alith offhandedly said, giving Niset a list of materials longer than her arm. This, go to the reception desk, tell them I sent you and give them the list, they'll tell you what you can buy from us. Some of these names I've never even heard of though, so we probably won't have everything. You can always try your luck with the Adventurers Guild or the Vasperians for the rest. Will do, thanks. Here, take this, as thanks for helping us so much and for free. Candies? You can identify them on the way to see your wife. Oh, and be careful not to give these to someone who's low level, that could end up badly. Go appease your wife, then? Are you waiting until she finds another snake? Oh, right. It was a pleasure to help you both, ladies. Come here whenever, CA/N/O/vel/B//in.C//om. Niset left his office in a hurry, pocketing the handful of candy without even trying to identify them. Which ones did you give him? I gave him my whole stock of health ones, there were like 15 or so. That's worth a small fortune. We're about to make the better version with the ingredients he just gave us, an easy way to acquire. You said you'd come find the stuff with me, right? Of course. If we need to move out of the city, though, it would be nice if I could finish to prime the scepter first. If that's okay with you. Not a problem, I have a few other things to take care of too, and a good bath is very very high on that list right about now. Weren't you supposed to always be presentable? The skill can only do so much. Sofia and Alith spent the rest of their morning at an expensive inn where they could enjoy a nice bath and good food. Then they scoured the city's many shops all afternoon, buying piles of useless stuff, some new clothes and other such things that they knew they were never going to use. Sofia's crown certainly drew some attention, but this time no one was dumb enough to ambush her in a back alley. The night ended in a dwarven pub where Alith instantly became friends with everyone, perhaps in part because of how well she handled her alcohol, but probably more because of all the drinks she bought for everyone all night. Come morning, Sofia headed out of the city to set up the sun ritual somewhere calm and sunny while Alith returned to the red carpet auction house. Sofia's Shadow Scepter. Must be primed to unlock advanced functions, 538 511 042/1000000000 mana. Just a regular day's worth of mana and it went up by like 14 millions? Guess I'll only be sitting here a few days. Sofia had flown up north and set up her ritual on a bone platform she formed on the peak of the highest mountain she could find nearby, so that she could be above the clouds. Who am I kidding, there's still clouds above, but not as much. That should be as much sun exposure as I can get without climbing on a trial tower or something like that. Finally set up, Sofia sat in the ritual circle and sacrificed the usual 100 gold to it. Her regeneration was about 330 mana per second with the ring and crown, it shot up to almost 1000 points per second with the ritual. After a full day of doing nothing but charging the scepter, the count had gone up by almost 60 million mana. Sofia's Shadow Scepter. Must be primed to unlock advanced functions, 597 539 625/1000000000 mana. I kinda wish I had taken meditation right now so I could still train instead of doing nothing, but I can't afford to lose any of my current classless skills. At this pace, I still need to stay here for about 7 days. Sofia spent the following week sitting on her platform atop the mountain, steadily feeding all her mana to the gluttonous staff. Since there was nothing else for her to do, she spent the whole time sculpting random things out of bone with Bone Dominus, as that didn't cost any mana. Or rather, she could tell now after using it so much, it used mana, but not hers. It used the ambient mana or the mana already contained inside the bones. Her sculptures were a bit rough at the start, about the same quality as the dragon handprint, and throughout the week, they became quite a bit better, if still not incredible. Her best creation out of the whole was a life-sized Alith statue. She still felt that its facial expression was a bit off, but no matter what she tried she couldn't make it better. The worst statue was the one representing Velour. Sofia had struggled a lot with the fox tail, and even after spending a whole afternoon on it, it still looked like a trail of wildfire behind Velour's ass rather than a fluffy tail. I need to get better and take those to a painter. Bone is nice but I don't have much control over the color, it's all white after I work it into shape. Sofia sat under the gentle moonlight waiting for the regeneration of the last few tens of thousand mana points needed for priming the staff. I wonder how much these might sell for. Maybe I have a career as a sculptor just waiting for me if I decide to give up on chasing a god. Is sculptor a class? I wonder how they'd fight. It's not like you can sculpt your enemies mid-battle, that's just called being a swordsman. Perhaps they can make golems out of their sculptures. But they'd need to craft a core every time, then? That's got to be expensive. Yeah, necromancy is just better. Kill stuff and steal their skeleton, easy. Sofia was lost in her thoughts and didn't notice the counter of the scepter's mana reaching its limit. In her hands, the weapon started glowing. The black wooden staff was hot, it trembled. Charged with mana, it was glowing stronger and stronger, dispelling the night. Sofia had to cover her eyes. The blinding light only got stronger. Sofia could feel the weapon change in her grasp, like a snake shedding its skin. Scales of black primus wood flew off of the weapon. Its shape changed, the mana inside it concentrated and swirled in thousands of small ritual circles that Sofia couldn't make any sense of. It all got more and more intense until the crooked staff straightened into a new form, making a sound like shattering glass. The light receded, and Sofia opened her eyes to find a transformed weapon in her hands. The staff was longer and straighter, almost as tall as herself, while still made of the same black primus wood. It was no longer black, but transparent white, and covered in countless golden runes. Inside of it, Sofia could see orichalcum veins, and a small but majestic dragon horn brimming with mana from which the veins all originated. The hand atop the staff still held the catalyst, but it had changed. No longer was it a skeletal hand or an avian hand, it was a stronger, more violent hand, a replica of Sofia's hands in demon form. Speechless, Sofia could only identify the scepter once more. Hand of the first Saintess. A weapon that has grown to resemble its user's most used attack spell. It speaks to you, never let me go. Absorbs the backlash of forcefully cancelled channeling. Cannot be damaged by the user's magic. Cannot be forcefully unequipped. Attracts and absorbs weak magical projectiles aimed at the user. Halves channeling time. Halves the mana cost per second of sustained magic. While casting Angel's Bolt through it, absorbs 50% of the damage the channeling would cause to the user. Extends the maximum reach of all skills by the length of the scepter, if applicable. Inflicts electrical damage on hit, melee use only. Currently holding, Midanisit Catalyst, Legendary. The weapon hungers for endless mana. Item level, Sofia Afinoreth's current level. Grade, Flawless. Restriction, wearer must be able to cast Angel's Bolt. Soulbound. Chapter 232, Call Me a Lord. Sofia couldn't help herself as she kept admiring the staff from every angle. Even the crown was whatever, this, in comparison, was an object that had changed by its own will to fit her needs. When she stood up and held it with the lower pointy tip on the ground, the top of the catalyst held by the demon hand reached about the level of her eyes. Sparks of blue electricity flew around when she swung the scepter, and she found out about two new things she could do with it. First of all, there was a dragon horn inside of the staff. Bones. So now the staff was one of her two blessed constructs, and she found out with great joy that the protection from the blessing was extended to the whole object, not just the bone. Following that logic, she changed her second blessed construct to her own skull, after putting on a rune and trying it on one of her hands first, just in case. The verdict was that her whole skeleton had become much more resilient. Why it applied to the whole staff from the horn and only to her skeleton instead of her whole body, she didn't know. But previously, when she had tried it on her hand, it didn't spread like this, so she guessed it was a hidden perk of Bone Dominus reaching level 2. The second new thing the scepter could do was to be used for the cast of Spine of the Black Sun. Like this, the sword form was more than 3 meters long, looking more like a lance with its tip swapper for a sword, which Sofia found worked strangely well. This also extended to the whip form. It was much harder to aim like this, but she could control the starting trajectory with Bone Dominus, which negated the issue. In fact, she could lash out with the whip without even having to swing the staff, just guiding the start of its motion and letting momentum do the rest. The sword and whip hits benefited from the electrical effect too. The icing on the cake was the description of the skills updating to reflect the new casting and upkeep times, just in case she wasn't sure. Spine of the Black Sun, invokes the weapon Spine of the Black Sunday. The spine is a blunt segmented longsword that may also be used as an extendable whip. Deals low physical damage. Upon hitting an enemy with the spine, creates a solar burst, damaging all enemies in a 5.00, 6.82 m, 1 plus skill level /50, diameter sphere around the point of impact. The explosion's power scales with the skill level and the strength of the hit. Recover health equal to 20%, skill level /10, of the damage dealt by the explosion. The spine will disappear if it leaves your hands. Nov. L. B //JNN. Requires a 1.5 seconds channeling to deploy. Costs 150 mana per second to maintain. Graveyard of the Righteous, create a 601.8 meters, 3 *skill level, large and wide consecrated graveyard around the Saintess, must be solid ground. The skeletons of the righteous dead are buried in the graveyard. Their arms and upper body may surface to grab the Saintess's enemies, incapacitate them or drag them underground. The skeletons have the relative strength and resilience of a level 200, 1 * skill level, paladin and cannot inflict any direct damage. Requires a 5,58, 2,79 seconds, 10, class level /50, channeling to deploy. Costs 150 mana per second to maintain. Also, from her testing, the speed of charging angel bolts had doubled, but the mana depletion had doubled as well. This meant that it didn't count as a sustained magic, which Sofia complained but was not surprised about. The Iridian Rot, however, was sustained magic. Now only costing 5,000 mana points per seconds, it was an enormous discount. It didn't, however, spread with an extended maximum reach out of the zone touched by holy light. And that's good. Because I would lose any and all precision I still have with it. Also, how does it even apply to the spine's explosion range? And the staff reaches my eyes when upright, so 1.82 meters sounds about right. Guess there's 14 centimeters between my eyes and the top of my head, could have lived without knowing that. I don't even want to know how much I weigh. I noticed the wooden floors of the inn creaking a lot when I walked, and I didn't even have my wings out. Perith would probably blast straight through and end up crashing into the wine cellar. Well, flooring issues aside, it's about time I looked at my new skills. Now feels like a great time. New active skills are available. New passive skills are available. Yeah, I know. Let's do the passive first since I have fewer keywords. I might want to start making 2-word skills more often now with all the free slots I have. Available passive skills. Runic, you are one with the runes of Venerated, impose respect in the name. Lord, speed to all controlled undead. Unless I mean Runic Lord is fine, alright. But Venerated Runic Lord though. Runic Lord, from the descriptions, sounds like it would probably give a permanent speed enchantment to me and the undead around. Which, by itself, is good enough to take without looking back. Venerated and Lord in the same skill though, it feels like a waste to not use them together, even if the descriptions don't match at all. And with the Draconic system, adding such imposing keywords might help push the skill in an interesting direction too. But just Runic Lord is a much safer choice. Whatever, do it. Give it to me, Venerated Runic Lord. You have acquired the passive skill, Venerated. You have acquired the passive skill, Runic. You have acquired the passive skill, Lord. And Sir Scribe wasn't ready for this one it seems. Well, it's alright, take your time. I'll be looking at the actives while you deal with that. Available active skills. Command, Soul that none can resist. Restore, infuse the target with mana 2. Ritual Skulls of Error. Penumbra Error. Ceremonial, invoke the authority of Pulse, in a wide area around the caster. Interesting. I don't see an instant pick like I did with the passives, but maybe that's just because there's so many keywords I have 2 slots to fill, but that's starting to feel like not so much space anymore. Though I suppose that's all I get until I finish the next trial when it comes to active keywords because the ones from level 240 will probably get skipped like before every trial. Restore command still sounds like a solid choice, though its use will be quite limited in battle. Restore Penumbra doesn't feel right. Restore Pulse sounds like it might be some kind of resurrection skill? Better stay away from these two. I'll just keep a list of all decent options or I'll never manage to choose. 1 Restore command. What else can I do with Restore? Not much I think, it doesn't really go well with Ritual Skulls nor with Ceremonial. I guess maybe Restore Ceremonial Penumbra might end up being alright? I'm not convinced. Next for the Skulls. Ritual Skulls of kind of overlaps with Ceremonial, since religious ceremony is usually built around a ritual of some kind, like the Templar's anointment ceremony. So I guess, just no double starting keyword this time. That does take care of a lot of combinations. Then, in the basics I have Ritual Skulls of Penumbra, which I guess is an option. I have no idea what it could do, which I'm not very eager to bet on. Next is Ritual Skulls of Command. Sounds kind of like something with a mind control effect similar to domination, like put the skull on someone like a helmet and it commands them? I don't know. Doesn't sound bad, but also not really the kind of skill I want to have. I'll put it down as a viable option though. 2 Ritual Skulls of Command. And the last option for 2-word skulls is Ritual Skulls of Pulse. I can't imagine what that would do at all, so it's out. Sofia paused for an instant. She opened her status and tried to think about what her skills lacked. I have no active defense against physical attacks. Sure, I can try to parry with my sword, but if an attack gets past parith for whatever reason, like Victory's flying sword, then I struggle to avoid it. So some kind of defensive or evasive active skill to pair with evasion would be great. At least now I can counter spells with heat death, so that's not an issue. Another thing I lack is a 4th summon, but I don't think these keywords are gonna be it. Besides that, I could use more offensive options. So far it's been angel bolts left and right, but what if I fight someone like Alith who is immune to fire and explosions? Then even the spine's explosions wouldn't do much besides apply the staff's electricity. I also have the rot now though. But it might only serve as a slow mana drain against enemies with high mana reserves like another saint, so in those cases, more attack is also nice. Simply having more attack patterns can make touching enemies easier. Might have not struggled as much to touch the master if I had a few more different options to cycle through. A way to prevent enemies from getting close like Astlias Repulsion would also be incredible against all melee fighters. I do have the graveyard, but at these levels everyone can jump over the skeletons or fly, so it's been largely relegated to a movement tool. Pulse does sound like it could work toward that kind of repulsion skill, but what else could I pair it with? Ritual Skulls of Pulse might actually do just that? Oh, that would be good. But would I take it like that or with something else? The options are Command and Penumbra. Ritual Skulls of Pulse Command or Ritual Skulls of Command Pulse. No, these sound like they want to mess with people's heartbeat again. This is not what I want. Ritual Skulls of Pulse Penumbra. Just sounds silly. But Ritual Skulls of Penumbra Pulse does have potential. It could also be some kind of wide area attack, which I'm not against. 2 more good options down, then. 3 Ritual Skulls of Pulse. 4 Ritual Skulls of Penumbra Pulse. This leaves the ceremonial options to consider. As a whole I don't really like that keyword, it doesn't inspire me much. But I shouldn't dismiss it so easily. Basically it feels like an empty word. Like it would add some kind of twist to whatever comes after, but not much. Because it's so bland it should work with a lot of things. Ceremonial command for some kind of mind control, or maybe something like a boost to people. I give a ceremonial command to do something. Kind of like the effect of that one classless zealot that gives stats when fulfilling your god's orders. Could work, but I don't like it much. Ceremonial command pulse would be just the same thing but in a wide area instead of single target. And pulse command is still weird. Ceremonial penumbra could be many things like a stealth, attack, defense, or utility skill. It's kind of a random pick, but I don't think it could turn out bad. 5 Ceremonial penumbra. I think pulse works better with the skulls, so I wouldn't use it there in general. Following the previous ones, though, I have Ceremonial Penumbra Command and Ceremonial Command Penumbra. The latter doesn't feel right, but the former maybe it could, like, create an area of magical shadow? Something like that could be strong, blind my enemies while I still see perfectly thanks to VPPV's passive effects. 1 more for the list. I think that's all, so. 1 Restore Command. 2 Ritual Skulls of Command. 3 Ritual Skulls of Pulse. 4 Ritual Skulls of Penumbra Pulse. 5 Ceremonial Penumbra. 6 Ceremonial Penumbra Command. I have 2 slots. I can take any 2 of those that don't overlap. What do I want to do with this? Chapter 233, Scribe's Overtime. After a lot of deliberation, Sofia settled on Ritual Skulls of Pulse and Ceremonial Penumbra Command for her active skills. What she hoped for specifically with both of these was some kind of area control to go along with the graveyard. Either by repulsing enemies or drowning the area in shadows. Something like that. With both of these there's a good chance at least one does what I want. And that leaves me with only Restore left for later. Sofia looked at her status, but so far the 3 skills she had selected were all unavailable. Then the first skill finished processing. It was the passive resulting from the combination Venerated Runic Lord. The name was in the common language, Runeforged Overlord. But the description is in Draconic. Come on! That's one fat description too, especially for a passive skill. As Sofia was trying to translate the skill, she felt her fingertips burning up. What is this? It was a familiar sensation, just like an angel's bolt slowly crossing over the threshold where it started to hurt to channel it. In a sudden discharge of energy, the pain flowed through her arms as thick runes engraved themselves in her skin, then the pain moved to her chest and finally her wings. Though her bone wings usually had no sense of touch, she still felt the acute pain go through them as the runes were magically etched into her being. What the fuck? This actually looks a bit cool. They're glowing even. Is that holy light? They feel a bit like scars to the touch. Thankfully there's none of them on the palm of my hands. n/o/vel/b/in.c//om. The runes on her arms were softly glowing. It was a very dim yellow glow. Meanwhile, the runes on her chest and wings were just like grey scars. They're all over my thoracic cage essentially, but they dodged around my breasts? Oh, they reach under them, though. What's the point of those? No one's ever gonna see them unless I wear something like Doppel, such a waste of cool runes. And the ones on my wings are okay I guess, grey on white isn't very visible. Can I make the ones on my chest and wings glow too? This must be some kind of self-strengthening effect, right? I don't really feel any different though. In a hurry to discover the effects of her new runic tattoos, Sofia translated the skill faster than she had ever translated anything. She was very confident in her translation as well, seeing the numbers as she translated it. She used a level up point from the second trial on it before she was even finished. Runeforged Overlord, your body has become one with runes of power. This skill has 3 tiers of power. You may activate the higher tier at any time, but returning to a lower tier requires to either take no damage for 100 seconds or become unable to sustain the tier's cost or conditions. The effects and cost of subsequent tiers are added together when active simultaneously. In your presence all undead and yourself gain the following effects. _____. Tier 1, no cost, requires the user to have arms. Become unwilling to attack this skill's user. Plus 20% speed, skill level /10. _____. Tier 2, 0.5, 0.25% max mana per second, requires the user to have a torso. Plus 20% speed, skill level /10. Plus 20% strength, skill level /10. Plus 20% agility, skill level /10. _____. Tier 3, 2, 1% max mana per second, requires the user to have wings. Successful attacks inflict a short-lasting confusion. Reduce all incoming damage by 20%. Omnidirectional free flight. Acceleration resistance. Plus 100% speed, skill level /2. Plus 100% strength, skill level /2. Plus 100% agility, skill level /2. Whoa, it's quite something. The scepter's mana reduction is really an incredible thing to have now. It doubles the uptime of this whole skill. When I activate tier 3 I get a total of 140% speed, and it also allows Perith to fly. That's big news. But 1.25% mana per second is a lot, and having a ton of mana isn't really helping. Also it says you can't cancel the tiers unless you take no damage for a while, but for tier 3 I can just cut and regrow my wings, can't I? Sofia tried just that. The runes on her chest started glowing as well, a bit stronger than the ones on her arms, which then followed suit in the increased luminosity. 1% mana every 4 seconds, but I can feel the difference already. And this applies to all nearby undead. I could even boost TLDR now. After that, she activated the tier 3, and her wings lit up like festival decorations, which also prompted the runes on her chest and arms to shine brightly. The difference in speed and strength was so much that it was disorienting when Sofia tried to simply walk on her bone platform. The omnidirectional flight is better than what I can do with my wings. I can just move however I want. That'll be incredible with evasion. And Perith is going to be a real monster with this. Sofia tried to then cut her wings to disable the skill, but she struggled to do so. Oh, right, they're part of the blessed construct now, I can't even really reshape them anymore. Well, whatever, I'll just wait for my mana to run out and the skill to go back to tier 1. Good to know that this is how it works. Depending on the circumstances I might want to remove the blessing from my skull. Sofia sat back down and watched as her mana was drained all the way down to 0 by the shiny runes. I might want to start wearing sleeveless robes now. I already had to have an open back for the wings anyway, so it's not that big a jump. While she tried to understand the runes on her right arm, letting her mana regenerate, a system notification appeared suddenly. The skill Ritual Skulls of Pulse has been renamed Skull Choir, effects are unchanged. We're doing aesthetic changes now? There's been precedence of slightly altering names like Blessing of Deep becoming Blessing of the Deep, but nothing like this. Though I guess I was able to name both the Book of Skeletons and Iridian Rot myself, so it's not much different. What matters isn't the name anyway. Finally. A skill I can read. Skull Choir, invokes the Skull Choir array formation to attack and blow away your targets. The skulls of the Skull Choir are counted as a single skeleton. The choir may only move in predetermined resizable array formations, will follow the user and attack autonomously unless manually controlled. The choir may use a different type of attack depending on the type of skull used as a model. Models will be consumed and permanently added as an available skull type. If no skull model is selected, the default type is human, sonic attacks. You can invoke a choir of at most 10 skulls, 10 plus skill level /5, rounded down. Requires a 1.0.5 second channeling time. Costs 150 mana per skull per second to maintain. If defeated or dismissed, the choir may not be invoked again for 3 minutes. Currently known array formations. Ring System Array. Next array unlocked at skill level 50. This one is quite chunky too. I can definitely feel the religious theme carrying over from whatever skill became Ritual Skulls of. The upkeep is a bit on the expensive side for now, but it's manageable thanks to the staff. At least it's not a maximum mana percentage. So now I need to feed the skill skulls? Bookie's not gonna like this. Interestingly, it doesn't say anything about the strength of the attacks. I suppose it's because the skulls will be of my level? It mentioned blowing away targets, so that's exactly what I wanted. Is this luck or is it Mr. Scribe being nice? Either way, thanks. Even if I don't quite understand everything. Sofia activated the skill with the maximum number of skulls. 10 small black swirls appeared around her. It reminded her of the teleportation hole in the arms of the Annihilator's statue. Out of these swirls came cracked human skulls, they all had bright yellow light burning in their eye sockets exactly like Perith. Without a sound, they started orbiting in a circle around her in an orderly manner. What do I think of this? Sofia flew up, and the skulls flew up with her, still perfectly spinning, as if tethered to her. No matter how she moved, they followed perfectly with no delay, only slightly moving out of the way of her wings if necessary before re-entering the orbit. If she got too close to a wall, they would stop turning, and if she stuck her back against the mountain wall, they would arrange themselves in an arc to protect her from the other direction. She also found out that she could have them orbit as close to her as she wanted until it formed a sort of spinning skull belt, and up to about 100 meters away at the furthest. After a bit more testing, she found how to increase and lower the rotation speed. Then she wanted to try out the sonic attacks, but she ran out of mana and the choir disappeared. It's not even that expensive, but I played around too much without even trying the main thing, and now I'm forced to sit out the 3-minute cooldown. Sofia was a bit grumpy that her testing was interrupted early when the skill resulting from Ceremonial Penumbra command was finally ready. Reign over shadows? Wait, it's a summon skill? I'm getting my 4th hero right now. Chapter 234, Did you say Queen? Reign over shadows, summon Heartless Shade, Grand Animist Irat to do your bidding. Grand Animist Irat's level is equal to yours and they may be resurrected for 99% of your maximum mana after they have been dead for at least 7 days. Grand Animist Irat counts as every type of undead. All non-sentient shades under your level will obey your orders as long as Grand Animist Irat is under your command. You may exchange position with Grand Animist Irat for 100,000 plus, distance in meters *10, mana, 10 seconds cooldown. The system just calls the hero by name in the skill? It's not going to summon a shadow hero but this person specifically? I didn't know that was even possible. Also, Heartless? Maybe I'm imagining things, but let's see. There's some additional stuff this time with the shades and the teleport. Interesting but not incredible. Should I summon them now? I should do that with Alith here, I think. Sofia stood up and deployed her wings, as she was about to jump off of her mountaintop bone platform, she froze. Her eyes glazed over as she stood motionless. Sofia's mind was hazy, all she saw was an endless sea of turbid, roiling grey, like an ocean of dense fog. She heard the faint sobs of a woman, echoing from all around. In the distance, Sofia thought she could see the faint outline of the woman's back. She was dressed in all white, like a bright light in the unending horizon of drab clouds. The image of the woman shook and morphed, it became a huge and intricate ritual circle drawn in white blood. Sofia only saw it for an instant, but it was like carved into her retina, every line, every detail, she could still see them perfectly. Sofia woke up from her trance, she had to sit down. I would like to correct myself, I am not imagining things. There is no way this was not sorrow. I thought only oracles received divine visions. This ritual, is it the ritual for this skill's summoning? Do I need that? Uncertain, she tried to activate the skill. Nothing happened, her mana wasn't responding at all. Yeah, alright, I get it now. This is another gift, then? A special curate summoned by Sorrow herself? Alith is definitely going to want to be there. In a remote location of the craggy plains northeast of Huoaso, Sofia and Alith stood in front of the completed ritual circle drawn in blood. And Sorrow taught you this whole thing in a 10-second vision? Here I thought I had a good memory. There was definitely something she did to help me remember it, because I couldn't learn that in a year if I tried. Yeah, no shit, that's at least 50,000 runes all around this thing. Who could even design that? A god? Yeah, well. Yeah. That or the Lich guy maybe. Think this new one will be from my world too? Most heroes are from your world or the Beastman one, but who knows? There's been standout summons from rare worlds, supposedly that's how most races appeared around the world in the first place. Only one way to find out, your play, Sof. Any clue what an animist is, by the way? No idea. You've seen the skill description too, I don't know more. Go then, let's get this new hero in the team. Hopefully they're more talkative than Mr. Big Bones over here. N/O/vel/b/in.c//om. I just hope they can come with me in trials, unlike a certain someone. What can I say? I never had a choice. I kinda like challenging myself, so it's nice to do them by myself anyway. Especially when you do all the leveling, at least like this I feel like I earned my power at least a bit, you know. Well, you're going to summon M or not? Yes, yes. Here we go. Sofia pumped mana into the ritual as she activated the skill. Her mana was drawn out of her body until she only had 1% left. Ow, that getting emptied that fast doesn't feel so good. In the middle of the ritual circle, a black liquid appeared and started bubbling as if it was boiling. Slowly, a pitch black thing started rising out of the liquid, which seemed to be the feathered top of a head. A bird beastman? An avian? No, is that a hat? Oh, it's some kind of hat with feathers on it. It was hard to discern much, because the thing was completely of an almost uniform black that made it look nearly flat. Like a black silhouette. Slowly the complete form of the person rose from the liquid, from the general shape of the silhouette, which was strangely hazy even when Sofia tried to focus on it, it looked like a man. A relatively tall, lanky man, covered in large jewels, bracelets, baubles and trinkets of all sizes and shapes, all just as black and unreadable as him. The other standout feature was the large round hole in his chest, but at this point that's exactly what I was expecting. He looks human, I think, maybe. Hard to tell, he looks like a shadow, really. The person had been immobile through the whole process, slightly hunched forward, arms hanging. Sofia was walking around him, the change in perspective allowing to understand more about the shadowy person's silhouette. The shadow suddenly awakened. They looked around frantically, before taking an audible deep breath before erupting in a strong voice, raising his arms to the sky. I have been reborn. Praised be the merciful mother. The man saw the two women and the huge skeleton surrounding him silently, his attitude changed in an instant after his cry of joy. Turning toward Sofia, he kneeled. Or at least that's how she interpreted the movement of the black thing in front of her. My queen. I, Irat of Sorrows, shall serve your holy lineage for eternity, he solemnly declared, gesticulating with his arms and ending up with a clenched fist to support his point. Sorry to disappoint you, but I am no queen. No, you are, he kindly explained, stating the facts, you wear a crown, therefore you are. This. Hey, that's a sudden promotion, but I wouldn't say no to becoming a queen too, you know, Alith joked to save Sofia from an uncomfortable silence. Irat straightened up and turned toward her. Amalgam, you lack both the essence and the crown, how can you hope to become queen? Your dispositions are different. I feel not the presumption of a queen in you. No, a witch you are, your body smells of 1,000 brews. It too is a most coveted position, one of talent and restless work. The shadow's voice swayed like waves as he spoke. Sofia found listening to him strangely relaxing. Amalgam? Also he could tell that much about her from smell alone? Did I summon a dog? Then what does the position of a queen imply? Sofia asked. Reign over one such as I, of course. A shadow I have become. Your shadow, if you will it. That is why I summoned you, yes, though I did not expect it to be that solemn Alith here is technically someone I summoned too, but she's free to do whatever. So are you, if you want. I shall follow you like your shadow, then, my queen. That is my will. Should you want something done, order and I shall do. So does the witch, am I correct? Can you call me by my name? Also you're not wrong, I guess, even if I don't follow her that closely. As you wish, Alith, you may call me Irat. What may your holy name be, my queen? Sofia. And can you also call me by name? It is likely going to become an issue if you keep calling me a queen. Troublesome. I wish not to cause you such displeasure. If it is your wish, then I will do so. You may call this humble servant however you want. Irat it is then. Welcome to the team. Ah! The shadow exclaimed. Paintings. This is the fruit of this system contraption in my soul. I see. It says I should pick 3, my cue Lady Sofia. Shall I? Oh, blessing time. Yes, these will be random blessings, you can choose the one that fits your abilities the best. We do a lot of fighting strong opponents, so something which helps for that is good. But you can take whatever you want. A blessing, so easily obtained? You are truly deserving of the essence. Grandiose. Let us see what the great merciful mother has offered to make me a servant worthy of your will. Irat grabbed the air in front of him 3 times, seemingly picking the 3 closest cards right in front of him. I assume yes, of course such an advanced magic would allow such a basic thing, I am ashamed for thinking it might not. Here are the options. Please choose one for me, I know my abilities best, however I will be assisting you, not myself. The baptized hero has relegated his blessing choice privilege to the summoner. Please select a blessing for the hero, Irat. Chapter 235, Grand Animism. Please select a blessing for the hero, Irat. Blessing of Guidance. S rank. You are watched and tutored. Your god will sometimes grace you with guiding visions and quests with rewards. You may ask for a minor divine intervention once. Blessing of Comfort. S rank. You are a master at handling spirits. Gain the ability to speak with the recently deceased and to heal soul damage. Your healing skills are 100% more potent. Blessing of Radiance. S rank. You are the light chasing away darkness. When fighting, inflict 1% more damage to your opponents per member of your main species they have killed, human and shade. Any action that knowingly results in a death counts as a kill in this calculation. You gain additional stat boosts when fighting any opponent of a higher level than you. Oh, great! These are all incredible, but I have no idea what to pick. Alith was able to read the blessings as well. Well, it won't be comfort, at least. Unless Irat's specialty is only healing. I have, in time, mastered many crafts. Though I would judge my healing adequate, I was, however, fatally unable to prevent my own death. Sofia picked up on one line of the 3rd blessing in particular. She had her doubts before, but it was hard to tell considering Irat was a mass of shadow. So you were human? It is so. I believe I still am, if slightly less evidently so. But I was fully human, at some point in the past. I am inclined to think an uncomfortable amount of time must have passed since then. Well, figure that out as we go, I suppose. So healing isn't your main thing. What is it that you do, exactly? I know you're an animist, but I have no knowledge of that word. The shade brought his hand to his face. It was hard to tell what he was doing exactly, but to Sofia it looked like he might be playing with a short beard or something like that. I see, such knowledge has been lost. It is only natural, I left my empire at the brink of collapse, unfortunate times. It would be hard to make my craft clear in a short time, but if you let me, I shall try to at least give you an outline. Please do, then. Yet I'd like to understand too. All right, please sit down, the shadow said as it sat on the ground. Animism was originally a belief that all things possess a soul. Objects, plants, nature, wind, the world itself. It was later discovered that this vision was incorrect, however, it inspired my school of magic. What I do is not unlike what has been done with the skeleton watching over us, though this one is bearer of a true soul. My primary field of expertise is granting temporary souls to any and everything. They are as many natural and man-made vessels to amplify and redirect my power. Some would call me a master of nature, presumptuous title, but it does give a clear idea. Aside from that, I am an enthusiast of all witchery and other hexes. So far that sounds interesting, some kind of object necromancy? I don't know if I should be happy to have another summoner or if that's starting to be too much. Would you consider yourself a summoner? No, really not. I apologize, it seems that my explanation was inadequate. Let me instead give a few examples, if you would give me a moment to gather material. Well, wait, take your time. Thank you kindly. The shadowy man collapsed to the ground like a squashed insect, he became a real shadow. Moving from a shadow to another, he sped off of the bone platform and down the mountain. There he goes. Think he'll come back, Sofia? I don't see why he wouldn't. If he wanted to leave he could have done so earlier, just like you could. True. I wonder what he expects to find atop a rocky mountain though, even if he's speedy. Unless he goes all the way down to the forest. Did you choose the most barren mountain on purpose? I just picked the highest one nearby to be sure to catch more sun. Isn't the transformed scepter neat? It's gigantic, you mean? Just like everything else about you, so that's a nice fit. Hey, what d? I have returned. Irat appeared out of Perith's shadow and spilled his loot on the ground, a few branch, dirt, blades of grass and a random assortment of feathers. Did he just pick out literally anything he could find on the ground? This is what he's going to use to show his powers? Wait, before you start, Irat, do you not have a status screen you could show us? The system normally provides that, it would likely help. Status, do you mean this? Sofia was baffled by the system window that appeared. Nov, L, B / JNN. Name, Irat. Age. Class, Error. Level, 221. Health, a decent amount. Mana, 110 500/110 500. This is all kinds of wrong. Look at mine. By the goddess. That is quite the difference. I fear this system may not be aware of the nature of my magic. Perhaps this will correct itself later? Sofia confirmed, it has a tendency to do that, yes. Quite practical. My decent amount of health is rather comical, but not inaccurate. And also much clearer than this random number under it. So mana is the word that has won the most hearts in the end. I liked life force better. Either way, such a practical tool is very much welcome. Now let me demonstrate some magic. Shall I attack this skeleton for that purpose? Ask him. May I? Irat asked as he stood up, collecting all of his random materials. Perith said nothing, but his armor of light appeared around his body, and soon after, sanctified grounds activated, he clenched his fists, ready to defend. Here I come, the shadow calmly declared. Mana around Irat moved in strange, uncommon patterns, as if led by his simple presence. The mana currents surrounding his arms especially were like clean mechanical gears, interlocking and gyrating in unison. It looked jarringly unnatural. Irat spread his arms and threw the feathers he had collected to either side. From there, it was hard to follow, but almost instantly, a pair of perfectly black shadow feathery wings appeared behind his back. Soaring up into the air, he threw a handful of green blades of grass at Perith. Like hard steel blades, the grass produced metallic sounds as it hit and pierced Perith's armor. The grass missing the target and touching the bone platform below left deep cuts that Sofia knew had pierced straight through. Perith jumped up to strike back, producing cracks into the ground, and throwing a simple straight punch that was strong enough to pierce through a castle's wall. The shadow sprinkled a handful of dirt in between him and Perith. He punched the falling dirt, creating a giant dirt fist that crashed against Perith's. The colossal hardened soil fist cracked and exploded, but it still perfectly blocked and even slightly destabilized Perith even though it dealt no damage. As the last act of his show, Irat threw the random bunch of twigs and branches up into the sky. A rain of logs poured onto Parath, all falling vertically like giant wooden stakes trying their best to stab him, pulled down by a force much stronger than gravity. Parath moved as soon as he landed and dodged, but he was hit by the first log while still in the air and a few more times later, which he had to punch against, as the logs falling from further up adjusted their trajectory to land on his path. Irat landed with a curtsy in sync with the last group of falling logs. His wings, the logs, the dirt, everything disappeared, crumbling into mana dust, swept away by the wind. He applauded his opponent. "I am not disappointed in Lady Sofia's mighty warrior. I hope you might yet accept me into your ranks, despite this lackluster display." Sofia's mind was blank. When had someone ever heard of such chaotic magic? Even her own broken and randomly assembled together class was more coherent. But Alith had questions. "Is all your magic like this? Do you actually need to throw stuff around? What if you run out?" "A good part is, indeed. Throwing the materials is sometimes but not always required. I have the habit of doing so, most of the time, unless it hinders me in some way. And no, materials aren't absolutely required, but to ask me to not use them is akin to asking a knight to abstain from using their sword. Not to worry, however, as you might have gathered, my weapons are most easy to procure. Storage is the only worrying issue. I will need many a pouch, but this body I feel is unsuitable for regular clothing." "I talk too much. Did that help in your choice, Lady Sofia?" "Yeah, I think. Maybe. I mean the choice was between guidance and radiance. I kind of hate to pass up on guidance considering we can get information and rewards from sorrow. But well, I think scripture has killed plenty of humans. Hasn't he? It's like the blessing of radiance is made for me right now. Except I guess it's just a blessing against strong scumbags. It just so happens I'm hunting a godly one. In the end I have no way of knowing how useful guidance might be, and I'm not too thrilled about having even more quests to worry about. I have so much to think about already. Radiance it is. Just like my classless skill. Alright, Irat, you are getting the blessing of radiance. It is my honor, thank you for your choice. Now let me explain why our goal is to kill a god. Excuse me? Chapter 236, Where Common Sense Ends. This might not be impossible. Truth be told, I will depend on many things. The main hurdle is knowing how much essence he has access to. An avatar getting killed is not completely unheard of. All it takes is a few dragons deciding to clean things up, like maybe 2 or 3 of them. Oh, that's fine then, only 2 or 3 dragons. That meant little to Alith. What if you had to compare your power to a dragon? At my peak with the support of my entire empire I could have held one off for 5, no, 10 seconds maybe. Good to know. So you're saying there's actually no chance, right? No, there is a chance. All you have to do is to become stronger than a dragon. If I understand correctly, this would have us all here become just as powerful. Then our shared efforts would be more than enough. Oh, right, I forgot one detail. We have a bit less than 100 years left to accomplish this. I take it back, my apologies, this is impossible. Great, thanks, very encouraging. Lady Sofia, do not take it so seriously. My words are merely the ramblings of an old man. The world has changed in my absence, who knows what has happened. My knowledge might very well be more than obsolete. That being the case, would you happen to have a map? Sofia took out a slab of bone engraved with the map of everything she knew of. She had made it to keep track of her travels. It had most of the human continent relatively mapped out with a vague outline of the surrounding places like the Beastman continent. Irat was fascinated by this map. It seems things have changed a lot. So you mean to tell me all humans now live exclusively in the Avian Peninsula? The dwarves took over the Goblin Archipelago and new races of human-adjacent beastmen colonized the entirety of the lowlands. Where was the empire you keep mentioning? Were you actually the leader? The way you speak about it. Oh, no, yes? I was the Grand Animist, a position second only to the Empress. She managed the empire's territory and civilians while I managed the spiritual and military aspects. And where? Not that far but also hard to reach. Assuming nothing has changed, see the sea west of the human peninsula? It is a dangerous place. Beyond there is a desert, a much larger desert than the one the elves occupy north of here, and also much more lively. Further beyond to the west is a deep jungle, my empire lay there. In ruins. Perhaps my mummified body still lives there, decrepit in a lost underground tomb. Sofia was a bit impressed at how important the man she had just summoned used to be. He knew a lot about things she never knew about. The entire human continent used to be avian territory. Is the terrible menace that forced the avians underground 2,000 years ago humans? No way, right? Would she hide something like that? Also, I think even Velour mentioned she wasn't sure what was beyond the West Sea, and Irat used to have a thriving empire out there. Do you want to go back to your empire? No. Not much must remain. Perhaps later, my tomb might yet hold some treasure, but we shan't go there now. Forget it. You need to focus on growing stronger first, such is the will of the goddess. We cannot cross the sea anyway. Why not? Sofia can fly, you as well, and I'm a ghost. The issue is not simply crossing the sea. The issue is the Leviathan. The Leviathan? The largest known sea creature of this world. There it resides. And I do mean the largest, it's hard to even comprehend how big it is. Crossing into its territory is suicide. Even flying above it, well over the limit of the sky, is like painting a big target unto yourself. You will die in the void of space with no one to bury you. Even dragons seek the long way around. Its territory is rather vast. So even dragons fear that thing. And I've never even heard about it. While it's so close to Savon. What about teleportation? Those who have tried are no longer among the living. Oh. Well, maybe later then. Oh, by the way, I have something that might interest you. You can have it if you want. The shadow gently grabbed the cursed sand pendant out of Alith's hand. He brought it near to his face, observing it closely, his expression as hard to read as usual. Interesting. This is an object with quite a few interesting currents to it. How does it work? Send some mana to it and when you see the inside, think about putting something in or taking something out. Inside? No. What is he so shocked for, now? Compressed space magic? In an object? How is that possible? Can I really have something so precious? It's pretty common. A bit expensive, but we have larger ones too. This much space is already plenty, we used to go through a lot for much less. Oh? They still had some kind of storage magic then? You do not want to know. Especially for ladies, the process of engraving spatial magic into the body was rather disgraceful. And may I know the reason this is filled with sand? It's cursed. Just fills with sand all the time. You're gonna want to empty it often or it'll start to leak. Woke up a few times covered in sand, not the most comfortable. Cursed? That does explain the unusual magic currents. I have never seen something quite like this. I will gladly have it. The fine sand is suited for a large number of spells and sometimes hard to procure, this will be invaluable. I thank you for your generosity. The group kept talking about many things, but the two main subjects had been to put Irat up to speed with the new world and the system, as well as Alith giving them the itinerary she had planned while Sofia had been busy filling her scepter with mana. If I understand this well, my former peak should have been around level 400, maybe a bit below that. I am quite severely weakened at the moment. You got that far without the system? There are a great many ways to get stronger using mana, Alith. The system, however, has made them obsolete, I imagine. Why take risks and waste time when we have this option now? True, what do you think about my plan then? Since you know about apostles and relative level power. It is dangerous but far from impossible, if your information is accurate. An ancient dwarven masterpiece might very well be worth that kind of risk. To fail at becoming Domination's apostle, fighting them will get us nowhere, but their minds must be long gone. The main danger would be their aura of domination. Nov. L.B//JNN. We're immune to that. Immune to God's influence. Long story, well explain on the way, Sofia has a whole lot to say about that. But anyway, you're saying that it'll work, right? We must be careful, but likely, yes. Time to get back to the pyramid. Alith's plan for their next trip was rather straightforward. Since Velour and TLDR wouldn't be there for a while, they would go north and try to clear the desert's golem dungeon. Next they would head for the pyramid and try to snatch the pieces of Gadger's armor they had given up on the previous time. That done, they would keep going to the northwest in search of the elven capital to meet with the diviner Morn had told them about, which might lead to more clues about Saria. Some of the herbs Alith needed would normally be sold there. Finally they would go even further north, to a place that, according to Red Carpet's alchemists, was where the rarer herbs she missed for the medium stat candies grew. Thus the trio departed north, but before they could even reach the Red Desert, the group reached the green again, that stretch of land amidst the mountains that was completely overgrown by rampant vegetation. Irat stopped them when they explained what this was. A high-level elf would have died there? Ahaha, no, this is so very wrong. Someone has been spreading such misinformation? This is nothing of the sort. This is the work of a single plant trying to grow, the unstoppable diaran. Unstoppable diaran? Do we have to worry about it? No. It is a danger, and an incredible annoyance to deal with, but once the flower blooms, nourished by this insufferable amalgam of plants all absorbing and feeding it energy, it will catapult away a single seed. Then this hell of greenery will wither here to grow again somewhere else. Should I kill it? Sofia suggested. Irat turned to Sofia without a word. What is it? Lady Sofia, the unstoppable part of the name is not a mere decorative word, it is a warning to young people such as yourself. If it was that easy. Ever heard of the Iridian rot? Chapter 237, Land Art. Irat was still adapting to the system, but this was when he decided he really needed to read the full description of Sofia's skills if he wanted to do his job correctly. She also demonstrated the principle of the Angel's Bolt and explained how Perith and Alith fought while she was at it. It seemed he could be trusted, so Sofia decided to hold nothing back. The Iridian rot wasn't a name that struck a bell. Out of all things, it was the most unassuming one that stood out to him. The blood never disappears? Don't think so, no. The vampires bought it and never complained that it went missing or anything. This makes no sense. The only stable conversion from mana to matter is the gas that makes up water. You can have it bind with another gas in the air and make permanent water, but to make any other kind of permanent matter with mana it should be impossible. Well, it works. Your magic truly is beyond comprehension. Has so much really been discovered while I was gone? I thought it might have been a few thousand years at most, but was I mistaken? The system is a bit over 3,000 years old, Shadow Guy, so you're at least that much behind, that a lot, don't you think? That is not beyond my expectations. No matter, I merely need to adapt to the new times. It might take a few, I apologize. Sofia shook her head. Don't worry about it, you adapted to your situation more than fast enough if you want my opinion. But that's not the subject. Do I try to kill that plant or not? By all means, you are free to try, I doubt anyone would complain. Do I go all out or try a sample first? Let's try it small. I think .n/o/vel/b//in.c//om. Sofia sent a small ray of light toward the plants below. 5,000 mana worth of diaran rot instantly coating a patch of the green's wild plants about 2 meters in diameter. The rot didn't instantly eat the plants, instead, it started growing. Oh, this must be really full of mana. Is it not working properly? Irat asked, seeing that nothing much happened. Right, the description of the rot doesn't explain much even if he reads it. No, this is expected, just wait for it. They did not have to wait for long. The number of veins on the black film that covered the patch of the green grew more and more in number, looking like a writhing mass of small black snakes, and silently, it started spreading. At the same time, the vegetation around the place Sofia had first targeted ran out of mana and started getting consumed. It is spreading quite fast. How long does it usually last? When it's outgrown whatever it's eating and can no longer sustain itself, it usually self-destructs. Convenient. The unstoppable diaran is also not striking back yet, which is surprising. Alith averted her gaze from the furiously spreading rot for a second. Fight back? What do you mean fight back? With poisonous pollen clouds or something like that? No, I mean with these, Irat answered, pointing at a grey mass in the distance, coming from the green. Sofia tried her best to understand what she was looking at, but it was too far for her eyes to give a clear picture. What are those? Zombies. Whatever the wildlife used to be around here. They are probably somewhat strong. However, considering where we are, I would not worry. Zombies? They'll probably catch the rot too. Ironic. And good riddance. The rot really isn't slowing down. It's still picking up speed even. This is kind of scary. By now, the rot was the most violent she had ever seen it. Even when it feasted on the piles of dead flying monsters and the ebb, it was nowhere near this virulent. It was eating and spreading so fast that it had already completely cleared an area large enough to host a small village from any sort of vegetation. It was quickly spreading in all directions, and kept picking up speed as it went. These plants must be absolutely loaded with mana. And it doesn't even really show in the mana vision. The zombies were taking some time to arrive, it seemed there were a lot as they could be seen from very far away. The rot would reach them in a while. The group silently watched the Iridian rot eat the best meal of its existence for about a whole minute. Sofia was a bit proud of her accomplishment with getting rid of the green. There was still a lot to clean, but at this rate, the rot did not look like it was going to stop anytime soon. Then, right below Sofia, plants started to regrow out of the bare soil, at a worryingly high speed. What's going on? Your rot was not able to dig deep enough. This is the true nature of the unstoppable diaran. It has many deep roots, and plenty of reserves to regrow its lost parts. Oh, I see. Sofia fired another ray of rot spreading light below her. So I only need to do it again until it runs out. Finally, the zombie horde clashed with the rot, far in the distance. By now the rot was spreading over the green like a tidal wave that couldn't be stopped. The zombies stood no chance, and kill notifications started to trickle before Sofia's eyes. You have defeated Zombie Rune Bear, leave 125. You have defeated Zombie Folioan, leave 42. You have defeated Zombie Lightning Hair, leave 112. You have defeated Zombie River Kyunksa, leave 146. Nothing very interesting. Let's hide those. Should I speed things up? Go, Sof, we'll be waiting for you here, maybe the main body of the plant can give us some good experience. Irat seemed to agree with the idea, so Sofia started growing her wings further. The more mana she could catch with them, the faster she could fly. The runes from Runeforged Overlord actually spread over the new parts of the wings. I was wondering about that. It's a bit ticklish. Alright, well see. Just stand back and admire, it's time for a light show. Sofia quickly checked her stuff, but she was already holding her scepter and there was not much else she needed. She simply flew forward. As fast as she could, she accelerated, and when she left the area already infected by the rot, she started activating and cancelling Heal Undead with the maximum size along with Iridian rot every few seconds. Like this, she left new spots for the rot to spread from. Flying deep into the heart of the green-covered region, between mountains and over valleys, she covered everything. Sofia ran out of mana long before she reached the other side of the green, though she could now see a glimpse of the red desert on the horizon despite flying quite low. Had Sofia tried this with a normal mountain forest, the damage to the environment would have been considerable, but limited in scope. In comparison, the green was a perfect vector for the rot to spread. The notifications about the zombies have stopped. Already all dead? I didn't get a single level out of that. Sofia flew back to Alith and Irat. The area beneath them was already covered in blooming greenery again. It was still only short grass and plants, but that much was already a stark contrast to the desolate land it had been after the rot cleaned it. Another flash of light covered that in another layer of rot. I see why it's named Unstoppable. It is actually bound to run out at some point, right? Certainly, yes. I have no experience in this, so I cannot say much more except that we should search for the core. Perhaps we may be able to harvest something from it, if your black wave of death doesn't swallow it all. It might make for good ingredients Alith might be able to use in witchery. That's an idea. By the way, what do you really think of the rot? What if I used it against a dragon, or that leviathan? Assuming you managed to touch them with it without dying, they would probably get rid of it before it has time to start absorbing their mana, let alone deal any real damage. It's that weak? No, they are that strong. If you could keep applying it constantly throughout a fight, however, the result isn't the same. Suddenly you have a strong weapon constantly hindering the enemy and depleting their mana supply. But you would have to be able to survive long enough to attempt that. Maybe I can upgrade it. Well, let's get searching for that diaran core. Since I started this anyway, we might as well see it through to the end. Really, trying to get rid of a diaran. The group flew up until Irat pointed at a large tree in a distant valley, saying that it should be the core of the diaran plant. Seeing this, Alith couldn't help but ask a few things. Couldn't we just burn down the whole thing? And what happens if you just get rid of the core? Doesn't sound very unstoppable. These plants do not burn easily at all, the rot spreading like it does is really unprecedented. Dragon fire would perform as well, but it's hard to imagine much else attaining such results. I couldn't do that at my peak if I tried. As for the core, it is pointless to go for it unless you get rid of the plants feeding it energy, it will heal much too fast. You might as well try to excavate a whole mountain with a spoon. What about catching the seed when it's mature and tries to spread to somewhere else? That is the best way of handling it. A rather easy endeavor, all things considered, any of us could do it. The issue is time. Some Dimarians take 20 years to reach maturity and some take 500. Who is willing to sit 500 years in such a desolate place just to be in place to catch a random seed? It's not as if there's only one unstoppable Dimarian either, sometimes there is more than one seed even. There's more? If they can duplicate like this, how can the world not be overrun by now? The world manages itself. If it's a plant, then there's an animal to eat it. What the hell would eat this and want to deal with the stinky pile of zombie welcoming committee every time? What could even eat so much in the first place? I guess the Leviathan probably needs to eat a lot if it's as big as Iwara says, but it's a sea creature. Alith asked about what animal that would be, but Iwara had no answer. He shrugged and flew toward the core, reminding them that his wings were on a timer and he didn't have that many feathers left. As they approached the massive tree-looking plant, Iwara had a suggestion. Lady Sofia, this would be a perfect time to show me the power of that angel bolt you bragged about. Even with your rot, you will need a very strong attack to hope to breach the core. If you cannot do it, then all we did here was slow down the Dimarian's growth for a few months. I can do that, but I need a few minutes to get my mana back first, and we should probably fly a bit higher, then, I think we would be in the explosion radius right here. Inside, from up here? Is angel a secret word for meteorite? Your skill set is ridiculous. And I haven't even said anything about your name and your blessing yet, but you should know it is worrying, I hope. I can see why Sorrow would choose to send me to you. I haven't been revived for a day and already I have more questions than I had after my first encounter with the Headless One. Chapter 238, Nuclear. Sofia and Alith both spoke at the same time. The Headless One? Is he even still alive? He was a coordinator of sorts for the apostles of spiritual gods like me. If I understood correctly, Lady Sofia, you're half an apostle to Mother Sorrow. An ancient name for the Demon King, then? Yes, that's what my skill says at least. I rarely use the demon form. An interesting position to be in, keeping a human body does have its advantages. But back to the subject matter at hand, as an apostle you will have to answer his call, if there is ever one. I wonder whether that would still apply to me as well. I suppose not, since my essence is gone and my form is akin to my old human appearance. You were an apostle too, then? Yes, surprisingly the hole is still there even now, Iwara said, pointing at the hole where his heart would be. Not that I mind. The goddess is the sole reason for my presence here today, still living. Sort of living. I stole your place then. Do you want it back? Reclaiming what was once mine is tempting in idea but horrendous in facts. It is not something I would dream of trying. I highly doubt such a thing to be possible in the first place, and the merciful mother does not take lightly to such betrayals. Last but not least, your lady's company has been very pleasant so far, short as it was, and I fancy myself an honorable man. How is us being pleasant related to your honor? Alith nitpicked. Be good to me and I am good to you, the opposite is also true, he answered righteously. Now let me see that explosion. I have been promised a big fireball, and I shall get it. How big do you want it? I have several levels of intensity I can go for. N/O/vel/b//n.c//om. Go all out, just look at this huge stock of unstoppable Dimarian. Your rod has been eating away at its energy supply, but the main stock is yet untouched. You will need some really heavy artillery to get anywhere. As you wish, we all better get a lot further, then. Iwara slowly backed away. He had a nonchalant attitude as if he was still thinking how bad can it be, but the rot being what it was, he still followed the advice and moved with Sofia and Alith. So, the scepter absorbs an additional 50% of damage now. I also have the tier 3 of Runeforged Overlord which can reduce damage by 20%, but the upkeep if I reduce my regen is still over 4000 mana per second. The bolt with the charging speed from the scepter charges up by 3000 mana per second. My theoretical charging limit should be around 200,000 mana if I go at it raw. Since I made my own skeleton a blessed construct that should help my hand survive a bit longer. Then I should activate the passive when. Iwara was wondering what Sofia was doing, thinking she probably had to wait a bit for her mana to be full after all the rot spreading she did, which was indeed part of it. But she was actually mainly doing maths. It took her a good while to add everything up, and it was in good part just guesswork, but her estimates showed her that the timing to do everything wasn't as tight as she feared, and if she did everything right, she should still have some mana at the end. I'm about ready to start the preparations. It's going to be quite something, so don't be shocked if I do weird things. I need to regenerate mana in between, so you still have like 10 minutes before I go, I think. Nothing can shock me anymore, I think. What about you, IWA? Are we using nicknames already? Very well, Al, I personally am still shocked by this all, but it is no longer a surprise. To an extent. Sofia stopped paying attention to the two chatters behind her. Now she had to make sure to get everything right and bring out her largest explosion yet. The better she executed it now, the easier it would be when she inevitably needed to do it all again, but in a much more pressing and dangerous situation. Bookie out, give me the High Priest and the single giant bird, please. The book appeared in Sofia's left hand, presenting the 2 pages she had asked for, the 50,000 mana High Priest of Scripture and one of the many Quetzalcoatlus she had killed in Savoln, valued by the book at only 10,000 mana despite the large size. The 2 skeletons formed mid-air. Sofia grabbed the priest and threw it to the giant bird so it would be able to fly near her. Solar High Priest, LV 221. Health, 11050/11050. Stamina, 11050/11050. Mana, 42200/44200. Lifetime, 13243s/13260s. Solar Quetzalcoatlus, LV 221. Health, 66300/66300. Stamina, 66300/66300. Mana, 1105/1105. Lifetime, 13242s/13260s. They're not bad considering the cost, and they have almost 4 hours of lifetime now. Alright, 3 minutes to regenerate the mana from that. Next is the ring. The exact inner workings of the ring were still unknown to Sofia, but it used the mana it absorbed through collapse to feed her attack spells. So making sure it had plenty of mana to work with was essential. Sofia quickly flashed some rot below her to clean the area of any vegetation. When that was good, she landed and started charging a bolt. At around 90,000 mana charged, she used collapse. The Ring of Zar absorbed all the ambient mana as well as the forming bolt on Sofia's scepter, leaving nothing behind. Good, should be enough for a single bolt. Now to get back to full. About 7 minutes later, Sofia was ready to start. Flying above and away, she observed the stalk of unstoppable diaran. It was a big green tube the size of a century-old tree, ending in a closed purple flower. Irat's opinion was that it was better to aim for the base, so that hopefully she could sever the roots. The diaran was now alone in the middle of a field of barren dirt. The rot had consumed all. In some places the greenery was growing back already, but at least for a bit, the diaran's energy supply would be at an all-time low. Of course Sofia had sent some rot directly onto the stalk, but although it partially stuck to it, the rot could barely absorb enough mana to stay on it. The priest skeleton was on the flying monster's back, ready to heal. Unless I ask otherwise, start healing me after 70 seconds. You will need to keep the healing going for 20 to 50 seconds, just make sure my hand doesn't disappear. Her mana full, Sofia activated her armor and raised her scepter. Blue electricity started forming around it. The first 30 seconds went by without any issue. That's 90,000 mana, almost as much as what I used to destroy that ebb-infected windmill. Now to go further. She reached 110,000 mana, which was the point where she would have had to stop before the scepter's upgrade. Now she still didn't feel a thing. Her mana was depleting fast, but her health was full. The light emitted by the forming bolt was getting brighter and brighter as it kept taking a longer and smoother shape. At around 70 seconds, with more than 200,000 mana charged, the light was starting to go down. The bolt of plasma wasn't as wild as before. On the scepter, it was starting to become almost smooth, glossy. The damage done to Sofia's hand was starting to accumulate, but the overall heat was the hardest part. The air around Sofia seemed to warp from the intense heat. The High Priest started healing, and Sofia kept pushing mana into the destructive spell. Pushing her body to its limit, the bolt reached the 250,000 mana mark. Sofia's hand was disintegrating, unable to handle the energy. She activated the second and third tier of rune-forged Overlord. Her torso and wings lit up with countless runes, they shone even through the thick bone armor. Helped by the 20% damage reduction this provided, Sofia could keep charging, her hand barely holding onto the scepter despite the constant healing of both the priest and her two blessed constructs. The bolt was starting to amass so much energy that the ambient mana was drawn to it in waves, slightly disturbing Sofia's flight and adding even more power to the attack. It had been 96 seconds since Sofia had started to charge the bolt. Just a bit more, hold on. 98. 99. 100. Sofia released the bolt. 300,000 mana points worth of power condensed into a pure, sky blue bolt of lightning. Flying more than a kilometer away from the point of impact, she had thought herself safe. The bolt disappeared from the scepter as if it had never been there, and the world around Sofia turned incandescent white. Fuck. Chapter 239, Aftermaths. It was not as bad as Sofia feared. For an instant she debated switching one of her skills for friendly fire. However, it turned out that the recoil from unleashing the bolt had worked wonders to throw her far away. She had felt nothing, but the force had been strong enough that after just a second she had an external point of view to watch the giant ball of blue flames expand in the sky. She put two and two together and understood that she hadn't felt the recoil like she usually did because of a single unassuming line of rune-forged Overlord's third-tier description, acceleration resistance. The giant ball of fire expanded toward the sky like a blazing mushroom, radiating so much heat that Sofia felt like she was getting cooked alive, even more than she was used to. She kept taking her distance, lost in a hazy, almost ethereal world of white and blue light. Thankfully, Irat and Alith were even further away. They had probably decided to take more distance when they saw how the bolt was taking shape, so there wasn't much to worry about on that front. They were in fact still busy getting away. Sofia's health had taken a hit from the initial blast, but it was surprisingly tame. She was starting to have a lot of resistance stacked together. The 50% damage reduction from heat death was 1, then 20% from rune-forged Overlord. VPPV also gave 50% resistance against explosions, to which she could still add the protection from the armor of bones and even some protection coming from casting the bolt itself, although that part had never been mentioned in the skill's description. In total this added up to more than 80% resistance against this giant fireball and the shockwave that came soon after. The shockwave was much worse than the explosion. Sofia spat blood inside her helmet as she was sent flying even further away. The ground beneath shook, ripped apart by the tremor, columns of dirt sent flying in all directions, like erupting from the ground. n/o/vel/b//in.c//om. Finally she managed to stabilize her flight and watch the results of the blast unfold, her health steadily healed by the blessed constructs. She knew Perith had left the storage at the start when she panicked, but he didn't have to do anything, and since she survived with a lot of leeway, he had simply teleported back to her then into the storage. The azure flames kept rising, tearing through the sky, as the light of the explosion slowly lost in intensity. I did this? I did this? Is there a world where I survive standing in the middle of this fireball? Probably not. Well, no one died this time. I don't know if the Divinan survived, but I didn't get any kill notification. Then again, it's a plant, so who knows if it can even give experience. Sofia lost herself staring at the flames. Angels are even scarier than I gave them credit for. I will reluctantly accept these words of praise. Sofia hadn't felt or noticed the sudden appearance of the flickering being of light and mana beside her before it spoke. Now she was frozen in place, not by any kind of skill, but by sheer pressure. Like a prey paralyzed by the arrival of a predator. It is an angelic weapon, after all, she answered, stuttering, doing her best to keep looking forward. Barely. Mine is a spear meant to pierce, yours explodes. I might copy it in the future like you originally copied mine, should the situation call for it. Fair trade. Sofia didn't know what she could even answer, her mind was blank. Below them the explosion cleared out, revealing the almost intact if a bit charred stalk of the Divinan, burning. Its innumerable roots were exposed by the explosion's crater, bathing in a lake of lava. I came to issue a warning. Refrain from using such power in an inhabited area, or the system might send me to put you down. Rarely does someone receive this warning so early, consider it an honor. Yes. This is how I do it. Watch. Sofia couldn't control her head as it turned to observe the shimmering being, it raised a flickering hand. Mana gathered under its control like silk threads, visible to the naked eye, weaving into hundreds of hovering ritual circles of different sizes that all aligned to form a single uneven line. Energy coursed through the magical construct from one end to the other and a blue line of light silently flickered, connecting the ritual circles and the still-closed flower of the diaran. The sound of a small-scale blast came a few seconds later as the ritual circles faded. Sofia looked at the source. The purple flower was shaken by an internal explosion, wafts of blue flames escaped from a newly appeared hole. When Sofia looked to her right again, the angel had disappeared. Irat and Alith flew over to the flabbergasted Sofia. "What was that thing? Are you unharmed?" Irat asked as he drew closer. "I'm good. The explosion wasn't so bad. Did you both manage to avoid it all?" "We were far enough, Sof, don't worry, though I have to say I was a bit scared for a second when you disappeared inside of the explosion of light. Also, was that an angel? It looked like how you described the one in the tower." "Yes, to answer both of you, this was one of the system's angels." "You know the angel from Angel's Bolt?" "That would be this one. He came to warn me that he would personally come end me if I aimed that at a city," Sofia answered as she pointed at the crater. "Does the system really control such entities?" Irat asked, surprised. "It must be a creation of the gods, then. That or magic itself. This angel, as you call it, could probably kill a dragon by itself." Alith didn't understand the issue. "Is that surprising? The Leviathan you spoke of can also do that, can't it?" "You have no concept of the strength of a dragon. When we are done with your current affairs, I will try to arrange a meeting with one. The ones I knew should still be alive, even now. Then you can understand. If dragons are so impressive, why do you think that angel can hold his own against one? I think his name is Acromegan, by the way. He was mentioned by name in my original Angel's Ball skill. The way the mana of the world answers his call is something only dragons should be able to do. That one spell he cast cost him nothing, he merely asked for it and the mana around him did all the work." "Was that how it happened?" "I was too focused on the structure of the spell itself, I never paid attention to the mana source. I wonder now if I could use this experience to improve my bolts." Sofia looked at the crater of desolation she had created again. "Or maybe I don't need to improve it. Well, anyway, what did you think of my explosion?" "I don't know if I should be scared or impressed, but the blue flames look nice," Alith said, giving Sofia a thumbs up. "I expected to be surprised and you still outshone my expectations, my lady," Irat declared. "I have never seen a more direct conversion from magic to pure destructive power. You are definitely extremely talented at exploding things. I worry that my presence might be unneeded after all. And yet the diaran survived my attack. Your presence is appreciated. You haven't had the occasion to help in battle yet, but in such a short time you have already taught me and Alith plenty, that's even more valuable. I shall teach you plenty more." And once again, the name Unstoppable Diaran is no overstatement. That you could affect it to this extent is already an achievement in itself. And I believe the angel has finished the mission. "Let's find out about that," Alith said, already going down. "I'm curious what I could brew from that thing's core now." The group drew closer to the giant plant, finding it dead. The angel's attack had cleanly pierced the diaran from the flower to the base of its stem, destroying it from the inside before finishing its course in the crater of lava which had since started to solidify. Irat asked for a mithril weapon, sighing when he saw the plated dagger Sofia handed him. "We will need a better mithril tool than this going forward, mere plating isn't sufficient to harvest precious material like this cleanly." "I shall still do my best," Irat complained before he entered the hole in the flower, dagger in hand. Alith followed him inside. Sofia wasn't too interested in the inner anatomy of giant flowers, instead she replayed the memory of the angel casting his spell in her mind countless times. She wanted to be certain not to forget it. She was given an opportunity to witness such an advanced spell construction, and she would not waste it. Fast reading had been crucial in memorizing as much of the mana patterns as possible. It had even gained a few levels from the experience which she only noticed now. Fast reading reached level 59. Fast reading reached level 60. Fast reading reached level 61. Fast reading reached level 62. Fast reading reached level 63. Fast reading reached level 64. Runeforged Overlord reached level 201. The two heroes came out of the plant a few minutes later, each bringing out a plant part covered in translucent sap. Alith seemed genuinely happy about the gooey purple thing she was holding. Diaran Core, the mana core of an unstoppable diaran, can be fashioned into a mana storage device to fuel rituals or serve as an ingredient to lengthen the effect of potions. Item level, 400. Grade, Precious. That's quite a high item level. The thing Irat was holding looked more like a seed, except it was large like his torso, and similarly pierced by a black hole. Sofia couldn't hold back a light chuckle. It's probably a seed of sorrow. Chapter 240, Turn it on its head. Before going further north, Sofia remembered that she had not finished her testing of Skull Choir. She spent her last level up point on it, instantly catapulting it all the way to level 200. This upped the number of skulls she could summon with it from 10 to 50, but most importantly, it unlocked more array formations. From the message that originally said next array at level 50, she expected to get 4 more, one every 50 levels, but she only received 2. Currently known array formations: Ring System Array, Sphere Array, Wall Array. Next array unlocked at skill level 250. At least these are a bit easier to use than the ring. The sphere was what one could expect from the name. If she was walking, it would form a dome over her, and if she flew up, it would become a sphere instead. The wall was a formation that she could move around semi-independently from herself, unlike the other two. When she used it, the skulls would arrange in a grid formation, which didn't even have to be vertical. Its main and easiest use seemed to be to simply have them line up behind Sofia and blast whatever was in front of her. Speaking of, it was time to test the attacks these skulls could unleash. Sofia started simple, flying out of the barren zone she had created to find a large tree. She had played around with the maximum number of skulls and the arrays for a few seconds, but the mana expenditure was high. Now she waited out the 3-minute cooldown and only summoned 5. She ordered a single of her skulls to attack the tree. Its jaw opened and the skull let out a war cry. Ah! The tree exploded, sending shards of wood flying in every direction. Some hit Sofia and bounced off of the bone armor. Oh, okay. Yeah. That's not bad. Just to compare, Sofia walked up to a similar-looking tree and punched it herself. Her punch pierced straight through, her hand barely coming out from the other side of the hole she just made. I don't know if that's better or worse, she muttered as she pulled her arm out. Sofia opened her helmet and looked back, seeking her hero's opinion, but they were still busy gushing over the Dimarian seed and not paying any attention to her. Sighing, she closed her visor again. Using Bone Dominus, she made the gauntlet of her armor larger. Then she activated the second and third tier of Runeforged Overlord and punched again with the 120% bonus in strength. The tree was no more. I'm still stronger than a skull. But there's 50 of them. Oh, and I can't deactivate the Runeforged passive. Forgot about that. Well, if I'm going to waste my mana anyway. Sofia changed her skulls to a wall formation, lining them up on her sides, and ordered them to all attack the tree stump one after the other. The first one finished blasting open the stump and the other 4 basically only created clouds of dirt with their attacks. They all had their own different small war cry. Like that, she found out that the time it took for a skull to shout again was about 3 seconds. Lastly, she ordered them to sing. They tried, each echoing a random note, which only resulted in a strange cacophony. Not very impressive for a choir. Maybe I need a singer skeleton to teach them? Perhaps they can't sing because I don't know music well enough? Sofia remembered the music played by Victory's ghostly musicians, and as soon as she did, the skulls started harmonizing and singing to that tune. Then they disappointingly disappeared, because she ran out of mana. Gah! So close. Now I need to go listen to a real choir and shamelessly copy the performance. Maybe I could hire a musician troupe for a private concert. Are you done? We're waiting for you, Sof. Waiting? Weren't you guys busy being mesmerized by some slimy seed? You, Sofia. You. Stop playing with your bone bits and let's go for a second round in the pyramid. Irat stood at the border of the desert. The red sand moved all the way south until it found the mountains. What used to be there? Plains? Nothing noteworthy, but it was better than this. Your pyramid thing is deep in the desert? Alith pulled out her compass. Should be a 3-day walk in this direction, she confirmed, pointing north-northwest. That was when we were less than half our current level though, we can go much faster now. How? Alith asked. Well, I can run very fast. You get in my storage ring and Irat in my shadow, so I can carry you both. Simple. That should work. Unless Mr. Shadow has a better idea? Not really. He answered. If the book had access to animals which specifically go fast on sand, then we could have them pull us on a sled. But I have no idea how many skeletons are recorded there besides the few I have seen. My flight does not rely exclusively on ambient mana, so it would still work, but it isn't particularly fast. My idea it is, then. Take a seat on the Sofia Express carriage. Wait, wait. We almost forgot. Shouldn't we clear the other dungeon first? It wasn't far from the pyramid anyway, I'll just aim for the bigger one first. The exact order doesn't really matter. If you say so. Well, have fun running, Alith said as she turned into her ghostly form. Irat wordlessly fused with Sofia's shadow on the ground, she could barely feel his presence. A few hours later, the night had fallen on the red desert. Sofia was happy to see a few sprint level ups, and the pyramid appeared on the horizon. Sprint reached level 39. Sprint reached level 40 n/o/vel/b/jn.c//om. Sprint reached level 41. You have been affected by domination. But your skills negated the status. Sofia dismissed the notifications, looks like the failed apostles are still there. By the way, Irat, any explanation on the whole mutated demon thing? The shade popped out of Sofia's shadow, yes. Call out Alith, she might be interested as well. Sofia nodded and sent some mana into her ring, which prompted the tiny ghost form Alith to come out. To explain an apostle's mutation into a mindless beast, it is extremely simple. This occurs when the soul of the apostle rejects the divine essence. This most often is the result of a botched ritual. Ones like these are beyond saving. In cases where the soul has accepted the essence, it might still happen later, if the body also starts rejecting the essence for whatever reason. This is easily fixed, however, usually through a good and thorough physical beating. So this is what happened to Zire, I beat the curse essence back into her body? Then the Apostle of Dread might not have been possible to cure, depending on why it had mutated. What if I steal the divine essence from the mutated apostle? Pretty sure the angel bolts can do that now. I don't see how else I could have stolen victories otherwise. That would not accomplish anything of note besides adding one more essence to your soul. You already have a lot, in my opinion. I need more, both for VPPV and quintessential. If this edifice really hosts two such apostles, then there are two essences to be had. However, considering their supposed level, we cannot risk anything of the sort at the moment. Yet, of course still, now that I know the power of my charged bolts, it's tempting to just try blasting the pyramid open. But then again, that giant bird in Savoln was certainly weaker than the apostles and it ripped my head clean off my shoulders. Sofia walked near the pyramid and started to scout the underground with Graveyard of the Righteous. It had a range of 300 meters now. The black Primus resin bricks that the Black Pyramid was made of prevented them from going inside, but the group thought there might be an underground layer not made of the same bricks. No luck, there are several underground layers, which form an inverted pyramid under the real one. The issue is it's all the same kind of bricks, as far as I can tell. Besides that, no caverns or anything like that. Of course Alith sighed. Sofia gave Alith a tap on the back. That level 349 dwarf gave up on the armor so it wouldn't be easy. Oh, right, wasn't there a key he left with the message? I still have it, small stone key, look. Who knows what this might be for? Sofia went on to scout the three other sides of the pyramid with the graveyard just in case, but the only places the skeletons could enter through were the main entrance and the escape hole Sofia and Alith had made before. The group contemplated on a way to enter the pyramid and steal the armor that would be safe, like sending a swarm of undead rats inside to map out the place and then digging straight into the place the armor was from the outside. But there were always the problems of the Primus resin blocking teleportation and going through walls, as well as the demon's presence. Then, Irat said something unexpected. I think I have an idea. But, it is risky. And Lady Sofia will have to go alone. What? How would that help? I'm the only one who can use the compass, Alith retorted. Irat crossed his arms, he sounded confident. Compass or not, what you seek is in there, is it not? Then she will find it. Alith kept arguing, she was still against the idea, but Sofia interrupted her. I'll do it. Tell me how. Grandiose. First of all, I require a few ingredients. Chapter 241, Grand Heist Nimist. By pooling together the random stuff in Sofia and Alith's storage rings, Irat managed to find substitutes for the ingredients he needed, and proceeded to explain the plan. First of all, they used the compass to triangulate the exact position of the armor piece. Then Sofia put on some immortality runes both for safety and to mask her presence. Irat proceeded to make some thin wire out of the sand, having Sofia store it and explaining how it works while insisting that it would not hold its shape for long once out of storage. He also gave her some paste he made out of crushed resin that he carved out of the pyramid's bricks, mixed with sugar and other stuff. Finally, Irat gave her temporary invisibility and used his magic to make a small air pocket in the sand under the pyramid, from which he then silently sliced away inside. Sofia's role was now only to execute Irat's master plan. And now I'm alone. Supposedly the armor piece is 60 meters ahead. This was one of the lower levels of the inverted pyramid under the regular one. Sofia entered directly inside of an unlit corridor. Nov. L. B //JNN. I only need to be careful not to move too fast, not make sound, not trigger traps. Sofia advanced through the dark corridor, which was not very different from the ones of the higher floors she had been trapped in the previous time. More maze? At least I'm used to that now. Such a pointless waste of bricks. Advancing carefully, Sofia was especially wary of spatial shenanigans like the ones the dwarf had set up on the higher floors, but she didn't find any. Her improved mana perception told her something about this place, which was that there wasn't much mana at all. As Sofia explored the level, she discovered a few rooms. The use for some of them was unclear, others were simply filled with holes in the wall in which zombies rested, eyes closed, their arms crossed in front of their chests. Were these heroes necromancers? Who wraps zombies up in bandages, seriously? Were they too squeamish to look at their rotting entrails or something? If you're going to make zombies, you should be ready to accept that they stink. The zombies did not react to Sofia's passage whatsoever, but she could feel their mana, they were clearly undead. Is the discretion approach working, or are they simply not attacking because of the passive effect of Runeforged Overlord? I almost want to poke one just to check, but that may not be so smart. The further Sofia explored, the more asleep zombies she found lining the walls. Was that part of the ritual or something? I must be getting closer. I'd really like to have the compass right now. Dumb item, why did it have to be soulbound? I need to hurry, Irat's cloaking charm won't last forever. Sofia had time to make an escape plan. She mapped out a good part of the floor, and discovered alternative paths she could take to lead back to her exit point. After pushing further into the level, she found a set of 2 closed doors, physically sealed by some kind of yellow wax. They're in there, I guess. Mana's completely blocked by the bricks and that weird wax. This is exactly like Irat predicted, something's keeping them in. It's not like mana can't get in though. The domination effect could affect us from the outside, so there's obviously a way for mana to get out that doesn't let the mutated apostles through. I just need to find it. The sealed room was undoubtedly some kind of central chamber of the pyramid. Sofia walked all the way around it, not finding any glaring defect which she could take advantage of. It was best if she found the way mana already had to communicate with the outside, but since her stealth was running out, she had to go for the slightly riskier plan instead. Sofia found a good place to start her plan in the corridor along the central room, on the opposite side of the doors. I'll go from the back of the room, higher chance that the armor is there. Irat said it's probably on an altar of some kind, that's how apostle rituals usually go. Out of her storage ring came a brace, some kind of hand drill that Irat had her craft with bones and bless with bone dominus. She also took out the weird resin sludge he had made. First slather the wall with the resin paste. Use the brace to drill a little hole. Sofia followed the instructions the shadow had given her. They had expected to have to drill through at least 3 layers of resin brick with that bone tool, which was why Sofia had to make it extra long and unwieldy. Surprisingly, she only had to carve through 1 brick and she was through. Shit, did that wall not actually connect to the ritual room? Despite her worries, Sofia kept her hands moving, taking the hand drill out of the pencil-sized hole. She quickly threaded the strange glass cable Irat had made from the pendant's sand inside the hole, and sealed the sides with the resin plaster she had already put on the wall. She had been sweating during the whole process. Creating a hole meant creating one more way for the apostles to detect her and attack her through. Now she was safe, the glass cable supposedly only letting light and a minimal amount of mana come through, and she was in complete darkness at the moment. Now I'm supposed to look into the bigger end of the cable on my side. Let's see. I can actually see inside. Inside the room, from Sofia's viewpoint, she could see a large room with ritual circles painted in red on the floor and walls. She could see the other side of the wax-sealed doors from there, the rituals extended over them as well. The 2 mutated apostles were there, she could only see dangling hooves on opposite walls to the left and right. Kind of goat-like hooves, black fur. And I can't really see above that. I wanted to know what they look like, but I can't move the cable more, it might poke out of the wall and that could be bad. Though if they didn't notice the drilling, silent as it was, I doubt they'd notice the cable. Well, not the time to take risks. Sofia found what she came here for, or at least she thought she did. There were 3 closed stone boxes on an elevated platform right under where she had pierced her hole. 3 boxes? I only expected a piece of armor on a stand or something. Can I manage that? The plan was simple, supposedly. If she could solely thread a super fine bone filament through the hole with bone dominus and touch the items with it, she would be able to store them into her ring as if she was touching them herself. And since it's using the mana already in the room and not mine, this shouldn't alert them until the moment I store the items as long as I go slow enough. Then I can cut the cable and reseal the room completely with the resin plaster thing. But can I really store these 3 big boxes all at once? Compound items are fine to store, but it's harder when things are far away. Simultaneously storing 2 things is still fine, but 3? Why does storing things have to be so hard when taking them out is so effortless? Since she had no time to hesitate with only a few minutes left on the cloaking charm, which was possibly the only reason the 2 apostles inside hadn't noticed her yet, she had to go fast. There was always the possibility to leave, refresh the charm and come back in, but she didn't want to have to go through this place more than she needed to. Slowly, a bone thread as fine as a hair slithered through the hole in the tiny interstice between the brick and the glass cable. When it entered the room, she made it split into 3 and follow the wall, then the ground, until it reached the boxes. This was extremely hard to do as her mana senses were blocked from observing the other side of the wall. She could only rely on sight, and trust that the bone threads were doing what she hoped from the input she gave them through the side she held. It's touching, right? I think the threads are touching the boxes. All right, now or never. Sofia sent her mana through the bone threads to store the stone boxes. She only managed to store 2, the apostles noticed. Through the glass cable she could see their hooves move on the walls. They screamed. Their yells had nothing sapient to them, they were the pure, mad howls of bloodthirsty beasts. With a clean cut of her mithril dagger, Sofia severed the glass and bone threads, and hastily plugged the hole with the resin paste. Then she ran. Chapter 242, Map of Level Det. 2 out of 3 is good. 66% chance of getting the armor, now I'm out of here. The zombies had all awoken, they roamed the halls of the pyramid, searching for the intruder. They clearly saw Sofia when she ran past them, turning their rotten heads to follow her movements despite the rune and the cloaking charm actively hiding her presence. But the many zombies did not attack. They simply looked. Afflicted by the passive effect of the runes on Sofia's arms, they were unwilling to attack her. The apostles kept screaming, the pyramid shook, but they were not pursuing. They couldn't. The number of prompts warning that domination had been cancelled increased in frequency, but the protection of the deep was unshakable. Sofia made it to the exit point, she summoned the graveyard and the skeletons carried her to the surface of the desert through the red sand. Alith ran toward Sofia when she emerged. Are you all right? n/o/vel/b/in.c//om. I'm good, let's run. The whole pyramid was still visibly shaking from the outside. Just in case, they ran, going all the way to the entrance of the golem dungeon in the abandoned desert city. Relatively sure that they were not being followed, the group allowed themselves to stop in the abandoned city. Sofia recounted her findings. Irat was very proud that his whole plan had worked as he hoped, bragging that he still had it in him. He refused to elaborate. Sofia was bummed that she only got 2 of the 3 boxes, but both Alith and Irat reassured her that this was more than enough. There was no suspense as to whether Sofia had the armor. Alith already knew well before Sofia escaped, because the compass needle moved on its own while she stood still. From their point of view, she was sad that she got bonus loot. Irat inspected the stone boxes, curious about their design. This is vile. Riddled with curse. Forcing these chests open is a very bad idea. Well, it's good that we have the key. Alith grinned as she held the key up like a victorious warrior's sword. To take no risks, the group had won the book. Skeletons open the chests with the key, they both popped open with any issue. Let's see what you got. The first chest was the one that was in the middle of the room's pedestal. It contained a breastplate, a chainmail hauberk, leg armor and the solarates to go with it. I guess the other dwarf got the gloves and the helmet for building the pyramid, Alith remarked. Any commentary, Mr. Walking Shadow? Armor making is not my specialty. But this is a lot of mithril, while the inside looks like an enchanted Adamian lining. Sofia had expected the armor pieces to be dwarf-sized, and they were, so she wouldn't be able to wear them even if she wanted. Let me inspect them, the level 2 identify will help. Starting with the breastplate. Gadger's unbreakable breastplate, the main piece of a full plate armor of mithril and adamian steel of the highest purity. This armor is heavily enchanted with one goal in mind and one goal only, being unbreakable, or as close as possible. Grade, Legendary. Inspecting the other parts, Sofia gave the final verdict. The legs are like this too, and the mail is literally just tempered mithril. I think I'll wear the legs, the size looks alright. Doppel will eat the breastplate, I don't need the mail. Alith shrugged. Not going to feed it to Doppel too? No point, the armor is better, giving the mail would be like throwing it away for no reason. Irat looked at the mail hauberk, weighing it in his hands. This has to be at the very least 15 kilograms of mithril. This mail is an incredible boon. You should smelt it and get better weapons and tools forged, since armor is not an issue anymore. What about you? Sofia asked, do you not need any armor or weapon? No, I merely need easy to procure materials. Though I suppose a bigger storage item would be practical, if not I will go back to wearing many pouches like I used to. Sofia then said they would look for a storage ring while at the Elven City, before proceeding to inspect the contents of the other box. A single old parchment was rolled inside of several protective layers of silk. Sofia unfurled it and was surprised to find a blank scroll. Irat gave some advice before she could inspect it, send some mana into it. What if it's a trap? It was in a protected chest though, no one would do that. Sofia sent some mana into the blank parchment, a single line of text appeared at the top, with decorative flair around. Bastion of Domination. That's it. With a name like this, maybe this used to be the plan for the pyramid and the apostle ritual, let's identify that. Secret map of Domination. Domination has left behind a map to the bastion of his previous apostle. Only the worthy may enter. The blood of an apostle shows the way. Item level, 0. Grade, Divine. Divine grade? Made by a god? This is not unheard of, I once possessed an item gifted by the merciful mother herself. Is that buried with your old body? Sofia couldn't help but ask. No, it had been a single-usage apparatus, I would not die while still in such a weapon's possession. But are you not going to proceed further with the map, Lady Sofia? Oh, right. I don't know if it's worth worrying about it though, these guys had the ritual to become apostles already, my guess is they probably ransacked whatever that bastion is long ago. I do not believe so. Divine gifts usually disappear once their intent is fulfilled, for it to still be there to this day, the true treasure of the bastion must remain, untouched. Is that so? The necromancy grimoire was a divine item too, wasn't it? It was made by scripture after all. But its purpose was not fulfilled. Probably because I'm still alive and that wasn't in the plans, if I had to guess. Alright, the blood of an apostle. Sofia brought out the mithril dagger and slashed her forearm, slathering some of the blood on the map. To her dismay, nothing happened. Is it because I'm only half an apostle? This Lady Sofia, I believe it would only work if you take on your apostle form. You mean to say I need to take another 10-level debt to reveal the map? Precisely. Yeah, well. We will keep that for when we reach the limit then. We came to this dungeon to get experience, not lose it. A grumpy voice interrupted the discussion, can I please eat already? I'm starving. Come on. Alith rolled her eyes and grabbed the breastplate. I can give it to him, right? Why do you even ask? Finally. Yes. Ah, my strength from the good old days, it's coming back. Yuck. This is. Eat in silence, you freak, Alith ordered as she fed the mithril armor to Doppel. You have entered the dungeon, ruined city of Azar, LV 200+. Alith took the head of the expedition once they entered the underground dungeon, since she knew the way already. Here we are again. So, for a reminder, big earth golems everywhere, and that's it. We can explore the houses but I only found a few vases and stuff last time. Nothing really useful. There's 2 big locked doors at the end that I couldn't reach last time, probably where we'll find the boss and the item. I could go get the loot right now through the walls I think, but there's no reason to ruin the surprise if we're going to clear the place anyway. We might not get that much experience here, now that I think about it, especially with 3 of us, even with shared experience, the danger will be lower. Irat, can you fight the golems alone? I cannot be absolutely certain that it would be easy before I see them, considering my only plentiful resource right now is sand. However, I am not concerned about my survival. Great. Let's stay in a group and kill one each. If we all manage, then we split up, clean the whole place, and regroup in front of the locked doors. All good with the idea? Good for me, I really just want to try out the new armor. I like the leg armor. The mithril's dark green suits you well, Alith. With such an armor, you might want to practice your kicks, these Solarit's points are deadly hidden weapons. I am also agreeable with the idea of spreading out. Alright, let's go, me and Perith first. The sandstone walls of the abandoned underground city showed no obvious sign of deterioration, but the interior of houses, dug inside the walls, were in ruins. Most of the doors and windows that had once been there to separate the streets and the houses were gone. The houses were mostly empty, the group guessed that the inhabitants had left by choice or obligation, but with enough time to pack up either way. Or the place had since been ransacked, but that explanation clashed with the remaining presence of the golems. After only 2 turns through the streets, the first earth golem stood in their way, as tall and wide as the street. It was a wonder it could even navigate these underground tunnels without scraping the walls. Its body was entirely smoothly packed dirt controlled by streams of mana. Its core was hidden beneath, controlling the magic. Sofia could feel the location of the core in the golem's left foot. As soon as the golem detected the intruders, it charged. Chapter 243, Moral Support. Perith appeared in front of Sofia, armor ready. His weapon changed to a large shield, and he charged toward the golem. The 2 warriors collided, stopping each other in their course. The spine of the black sun appeared at the end of Sofia's scepter. Without moving, she controlled the bone whip to lash out at the golem about 15 meters away. The whip hit without difficulty, engulfing that portion of the corridor in an explosion of solar light. When the light died down, everything but Perith was covered in rot. The tunnel isn't going to collapse, right? The rot shouldn't eat at the walls too much because they're so scarce in mana. The golem tried its best to get past Perith's defenses, punching, kicking, and summoning solid monolaced dirt projectiles. To no avail. About 20 seconds later, the rot had consumed most of the golem's mana and it started to consume it, eventually reaching the core, which disappeared too. Nothing was left but thin black dust. You have defeated Earth Golem, leave 238. Looking at Sofia's kill notification, Alith had a sudden epiphany. Wait. Earth Golem? I never picked this up, but Earth Golem? What's wrong with it? I don't really follow. Sofia looked at Irat for help, but he shook his head like he had no idea either. You guys, what does Earth mean? Tell me. It's just another word for soil, isn't it? Like dirt is dirt, a bunch of dirt is soil or earth. As far as I know. I think that was mostly used by farmers. Speak, Alith, what may be the issue here? Well, Earth is not just the word for soil, it's the name of the planet I come from. Oh hey, something like that wasn't censored? Curious. But you named your planet bunch of dirt? I'm not the one who chose, you know. Besides, what's the name of this planet we're on now? How has that never come up until now? This feels like something I should really know. A name. Sofia looked at the shadowy man for help again. Do we have that? Not that I know of. What would be the use of it? To compare our planet to another? I have never known of anyone leaving. Alith took a step back and crossed her arms. Well, you do have a point. Can we really not leave though? In my old world, nobody could fly, so leaving was really not a possibility, but here, what's to stop you from going up? Where would you even go? The only things nearby are the moon and a giant ball of fire. The other stars in the night all look quite far away. And it doesn't look like the moon has anything interesting on it either. Not on the side we can see, at least. It's just a big smooth ball in the sky. I don't know. But I find the possibility intriguing. I should talk about it to Zero, maybe he knows more. For a pirate, he really knows a lot about many things. If you say so, Alith. But what about the dungeon? If you really care about the planet having a name, just give it one. Just maybe not bunch of dirt. I can't see many people agreeing to calling the world that. Although it kind of is. Right, let's move, I'll show you how you fight without a single skill. Sure. But why? Alith stood true to her words, facing the next golem they found at a crossing of underground streets. She ran around it, using her weapons to carve out its legs. When the golem collapsed, she changed to her ghost form and back. Just like that, she had located the core inside of its left arm, a few hits later and her mithril commas sliced the golem's core in half. You have defeated Earth Golem, leave 240. Easy enough, up to you next, Shadowman. Can you not use my name? Irat asked in a light tone that Sofia interpreted as currently rolling his eyes. Sorry, but it's a mouthful and a half. How is it in any way worse than Shadowman? Ah, back when I was an apostle, my name. He was interrupted by the thunderous arrival of yet another golem that the noise of a lithe one's falling flat must have alerted. More such heavy footsteps could be heard coming from 2 other directions. It sounds like we are going to clear this place faster than expected. Irat, you get this one, Alith the opposite side, I'll take care of the middle lane, call me if you're overwhelmed since Perith is there too. Sofia was waiting, channeling Graveyard of the Righteous while Perith used Sanctified Grounds. Realistically speaking, as long as you weren't surrounded, the golems couldn't outnumber them because of the tightness of the corridors. Unless a golem of a much higher level showed up out of nowhere, Sofia thought this would go smoothly. She was a bit distracted by the noise of an explosion coming from Irat's side, so she turned to see what he had done. He used the sand from the pendant as projectiles. Whatever sand he threw impacted the golem with great force. When the golem tried to attack, the animist simply collapsed into the shadows, swiftly moving away from the attack and reappearing in a convenient blind spot of the golem. Meanwhile, a golem clashed with Perith's shield. Sofia didn't want to use the rot. If multiple golems came after one another and she used the rot too much, the walls might actually be weakened enough that the dungeon would collapse, and she did not want to risk that. For a second, she wondered how she should deal with the annoyingly tough dirt monster without the rot or explosions. She quickly gave up and summoned the Book of Skeletons. Screw fighting. I have skeletons for that. She brought out her bone tablet with a reminder for all of her book summons. There were quite a few now. N/O/vel/b/in.c//om. 1 crow, the best one, 10. 1 rat10. 1 dog20. 1 soldier with bow, 5 rat, 50. 50 crows 500. 54 black turvans, small birds, 540. 100 rats 1000. 25 paladins. 5000. 1 saltwater spinnefish, 5000. 1 quetzalcoatl 10,000. 1 sokuva, not fluffy, sad face, 10,000. 5 fire salamander 15,000. 3 templars 30,000. 1 useless hero toxic plants 30,000. 1 stone ogre 30,000. 4 withered vampires 40,000. 10 dire wolf, weak fur price. 50,000. 5 quetzalcoatl 50,000. 5 giant ice spider 50,000. 500 red flailers, bloodfish, 50,000. 1 high priest 50,000. 10 female stone ogre 1,000,000. 1 middenicid ingot fey, 500,000. This is starting to be a lot to keep track of. Let's go for a stone ogre, seems well suited for this, it can occupy the whole corridor fighting side by side with Perith. The book's pages moved by themselves until it presented the one she wanted, and she ripped it off. A few seconds and some fog later, the stone ogre skeleton was up and rushing to the fight. There we go, this is the real necromancer life. I should only fight directly as a last resort. While the skeletons fought, Sofia made sure to stay in the middle of the intersection so that her allies all benefited from Runeforged Overlord's 20% speed, and she started practicing the new version of Angel's Bolt she had seen the previous day. The golems died, leaving behind big inconvenient to fight around piles of dirt that the next golems could control and use to attack. The more they killed, the more came, eventually even coming from the fourth direction, behind them, which Sofia summoned the Templar trio to handle. From the center of the battlefield, Sofia had stopped trying to cast the new bolt, she got nowhere anyway, and she instead controlled her graveyard skeletons to help on all fronts. Despite being surrounded, the group fought without an ounce of panic. Surprisingly, the side where the golems died the fastest was Irat. He had stopped using his sand explosion tricks and he simply attacked like a shade would. The exact same kind of strikes that had once beheaded Sofia in another underground dungeon. The shadow struck from the walls with deadly speed and accuracy, cutting straight through the earth golem's hardened shells. The battle lasted for almost 20 minutes, during which Sofia's mana barely moved at all. Irat and Alith had been touched a few times, which Sofia summoned the high priest to heal since the tunnels were too small for heal undead. That had almost been the book's last bits of fog, but she could probably squeeze out a few more cheap summons. The filter change greatly improved the fog capacity, more than Sofia had thought. As the last golem fell, ganged up on by too many skeletons to fit in the tunnel, Sofia felt like she held her beloved bookie in a new light. This is not a one-off trick anymore. The skeletons can fight well and for long. Now that I can summon a variety of them at the same time, I don't even have to do anything. Irat joined Sofia and Alith also joined them after the skeleton priest was done healing her. The mithril armor did protect her body from direct hits, but she still suffered from the heavy blows. Well fought, Irat praised them. Alith, yet, nice fight. I did nothing. No, Irat disagreed, you did a lot. The skeletons in the walls and the healing were all a great help. It still barely felt like a real fight to me. I'm really not used to being that safe. But glad you think the graveyard crew helped. I was worried they might be a hindrance sometimes. Are we done with the golems? We even got some nice levels out of this. Hard to say, but there were a lot definitely guarding something of value. I am starting to understand this new concept of dungeons. Well. I want to test my new armor some more. Let's go for the boss. Chapter 244, Lost Relics. The group progressed deep inside of the dungeon. There were no more golems to be found, it seemed they had all crashed into them at once, leaving only empty streets to explore. Alith brought them to the large doors she had spotted the previous time. At the very end of a street was a long flight of stairs going straight down leading to them. And this has to be where it is, right? I couldn't check last time because it was too far down, but I'm pretty sure. Actually, I should go check right now, don't you think? Before we really enter. Be careful, Sofia said as she watched Alith already changed into her ghostly form. Alith floated down toward the doors and phased her head through before coming back with a disgusted expression. Is something wrong? I don't want to fight anymore, you can go without me. Seriously? You don't usually back off like that. Is it that bad? It's You remember those things you told me about, thrombers was it? Big worms with many legs? Yeah? It's one of those but giant, like so big I don't even know how it got in there. I'm not getting close to this thing. As long as it's not over level 300 there shouldn't be an issue. Irat spoke up, I have never heard of such an animal and I have no qualms fighting it. Though I would suggest a cautious approach. Monstrous size alone has no intrinsic merit, but one can never be too careful around large creatures. Cautious approach. If the room is big enough I can probably send some rot in there. That is an idea. Let's try it out, I still have the hand drill thing. Sofia pierced a small hole through the door, she could summon blood through walls but heal undead was harder to do the same with for some reason. Through the hole, she could see what really looked like the skin of a big thromber, it wasn't moving. Maybe it's already dead? Sofia spread some rot over the monster, keeping it up for a few seconds to really layer it well. Her doubts about the liveliness of the monster were soon dispelled by the thrashing and screaming of the creature. Its hundreds of acid-covered arms battered the walls and the doors from the inside. The dungeon shook under the hits, debris and dust fell from the cavern ceiling, some of the old wall houses collapsed, but overall the dungeon held. The potency of the rot is unsettling, Irat commented over the screams of the monster. I would tend to agree. But since the bolts are equally scary, I imagine all types of magic can eventually evolve into something just as bad. But maybe that's usually for the higher levels? All types? Perhaps. Alith was sitting on the stairs, what about yours? Didn't you say you used to be much stronger? What was your strongest spell like? My strongest spell it certainly was not quite as visually stunning as a giant explosion of lightning. But the relative power is incomparable. It would be fast and strong enough to crush Perith to dust before he could even try to teleport away. We're still that weak. It's really not reassuring. But I already know. I've seen the Alphagiad. We are strong. Already amongst the highest of the living. Very few people would push so far, at least in my time. Because there is still a long road ahead does not devalue what has been accomplished. True that, Alith approved, in my old world I would already stand as the strongest human to have ever lived. I could unify the entire world through pure physical strength, what would anyone be able to do when they're all level 1? Even a ballista wouldn't get through Doppel. Their casual discussion lasted until the screams of the monster on the other side of the heavy stone doors died down. You have defeated young Thromber Hive Lord, leave 299. You gained a level. n/o/vel/b/in.c//om. Oh, it's over. This took a while. And another level. That takes us up to 225. I know I didn't want to fight it, but this is still a bit underwhelming. At least we're rid of that thing. Alith stood up and tried to open the doors, but she couldn't, so she carved out an opening with her mithril weapons instead. Inside was relatively intact. The chamber's interior was lined with a black stone that the rot did not touch for some reason. The corpse of the giant Thromber Hive Lord in the middle was completely covered in rot and actively being digested by it. Curious, Sofia picked up a sample of the rot-impervious stone. She looked at it from up close and with her mana sense, but she couldn't see anything special about it. Hardened black limestone, a semi-precious stone which usually forms under the great pressures at the bottom of the Black Sea. Grade, valuable. Interesting. I could use some of that if I want to make stuff that won't break as soon as I use the rot near it. I'm going to steal some of the wall's stone. You should search for the magic item. Yeah, Sofia, about that. What? Sofia turned around to see Alith holding a small chest made of the same black stone. There was an empty slot for a locking mechanism carved into it. Alith opened it, revealing a pile of black dust inside. Oh. The rot got to it well. My mistake. That's all there was? Yep. Damn. I should have thought about that. We could have easily retrieved it beforehand too. Don't bash your head over it, probably wasn't that good of an item if it disappeared that fast. You may have a point, but can we really say that when we see what the rot did to that huge thing? Not like we can go back anyway. We got 4 levels out of the dungeon and that's that. After the anticlimactic end of the dungeon incursion, the trio began a slow walk through the desert. They walked northwest, toward the elven capital, Herzl. They could have gone there faster by letting Sofia run for all 3 of them, but they wanted to keep talking instead. Sofia and Alith shared with Iwara their impressions of the world and their adventures through it, while he mainly offered a different perspective on things. Where his knowledge shined the most was geographical information. For example, they learned that the Black Sea mentioned on the description of the dungeon stone was located at the very north of this continent. He had never been to the elven capital, but he knew it existed in the Red Desert. It was a city much older than the system, possibly one of the oldest standing and still active cities of the world. They were walking through the cold air of the desert at night when the ground shook slightly. "Ladies, we have company." "What is it?" Sofia asked as Perith was already out, glowing like a small sun in the night. "The growling of the desert, it can only be one thing. Sandworms. They will try to come from under and swallow us, don't let them. Move fast, and target their feelers. It's best if we each handle our own, we need to separate them as much as possible," Iwara advised before he took some distance by fusing with their shadows on the sand. "All right. Let's just hope they're not as big as the one we saw last time." "Heard him, Perith? If there's more than 3 then don't stick with me, I'll try to hunt one alone. Bookie's still out of fog so we can't count on that." Sofia's armor grew out from her wings, covering her whole body, and the sword of bones appeared at the end of her staff. She dumped a bunch of bones in front of her and quickly manipulated them to form a large grid on which she stepped right as the sandworms finally attacked. They all sprung out of the sand at the same time. One of them came from under Sofia, but, unable to swallow the much too wide bone grid, it sent it flying and Sofia along with it, giving her an aerial view of the battlefield. There's at least 20 of them. But they're not that big, only around 50 meters long for the largest. The worm's open maws were filled with countless concentric circles of teeth, and Sofia had a perfect view of the one right under her feet, her bone grid the only thing keeping her from falling inside before the worm hit the apex of its push and Sofia along with her bones were catapulted even higher into the sky. Sofia felt her heartbeat accelerate. Before she fell, she illuminated the whole area with heal undead. The bunch of red sand that had been projected in every direction as the worms emerged, protecting them from much of the light, but some rot still grew on the monsters' bodies. The worms' mouths glue up in unison, white balls of light forming inside. Sofia wanted to check up on the others' situation as she was the only one who had been launched up, but she had to focus. 4 of the worms were aiming at her. Chapter 245, Cheat Death. The balls of light in the worm's maws collapsed and became violent beams of energy piercing through the sky. Sofia did her best to try to evade, but in this monolith environment, her wings were useless. 3 of the beams were on their way to collide with her. She frantically activated Heat Death, Her mana dropped by about 40,000 points, it left her body and collided with the beams, erasing them from existence before they could reach her. After their attacks, the worms fell back down, burrowing into the sand, but Sofia managed to lash out at the one that had been under her, triggering an explosion of light and covering it in rot by the occasion. For a single second, the calm regained the desert as the red sand fell back. Sofia managed to see that everyone was still fine, though she already knew that Perith was unharmed. Then, like geysers, the worms emerged again. I can't use more rot, I need the skeletons. Sofia barely managed to avoid being sent up again, but she was instead sucked in by the flows of sand filling back in the hole the worm closest to her had burst out of. Using her skeletal wings like long spider legs, she managed to pull herself out of the flow of sand. She also summoned the skull choir, in the wall array formation with the maximum amount of skull. The many skulls appeared in a giant vertical grid behind her. She would only be able to sustain it for about 2 minutes. None of the worm's beams of energy were aimed her way this time, so she lined herself up with the falling trajectory of the closest worm and waited for it to come back down. Attack! The skulls unleashed their shouts at once, battering the sandworm with air attacks like many invisible fists. The supple yet tough hide of the worm deformed under the attacks until it couldn't anymore and the side of the creature exploded, its entrails bursting out, its blue blood raining on the battlefield. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 236. Skull choir reached level 201. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 210 n/o/vel/b//in.c//om. Perith had also cleaved one of the smallest sandworms in half. Sofia caught a glimpse of him from afar. He was wielding a sword of light more than twice his height, a design she recognized as the giant sword of the Sun Saint. Once again, the worms all buried in sync, it felt like a very coordinated yet chaotic assault. Sofia moved across the sand, but there were too many worms around where she was, she couldn't evade. 1 second she was in the desert, the next she was deep inside of a worm's maw, surrounded by 1,000 serrated teeth. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 259. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 216. The teeth closed in on her from all sides, pushing against her, digging into her armor. She fought back, controlling her armor to form spikes she used, piercing at random where she could until she found a bone. The pressure of the maws was starting to mount up and Sofia's health trickled down. Health, 17,488/2500. Sofia fought to find a way out as the worm dug back into the sand, she was now upside down. The spike of her bone armor finally touched a bone, colliding with it without managing to pierce it, she made it coil around it and retract. This pulled her against the teeth, pushing them even further into her armor, her outstretched hand reached the worm's bone. It's the spine. Health, 7,330/2500. Bone Dominus. The worm's skeleton imploded, the bones collapsing onto themselves. The movements of the worm stopped, the pressure inside its maw released slightly, but Sofia was still stuck. She could feel the skull choir still attacking the other worms on the surface as it had been unable to follow her underground. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 240. It's still alive. Sofia's health was climbing back up quickly thanks to the blessed constructs and radiance. Health, 8,465/2500. Sofia still had a firm grip on the monster's spine, she expanded her command over it. The crushed bones formed blades that hacked at the worm from inside, until finally, she felt the pressure inside the maw release completely, the countless teeth no longer grinding against her armor. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 291. You gained a level. That was a big one. She felt the choir attack once again and from the notification, it had killed another worm. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 212. From the distance I'm about 60 meters underground. Can I use the graveyard? The graveyard of the righteous had more than enough range to get her out of there, but she needed an area of proper solid ground to summon it on. She could do it from the side of the pyramid, but underground it was impossible. Even if she had been able to do it on the sand, the mana-absorbing red sand prevented any such kind of shenanigans. Sofia pulled out her book, but it wouldn't eat the broken worm skeleton, both because she was inside it, and because she had used Bone Dominus on it, which made it improper for use as a summon. What else can I do? You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 230. 60 meters of sand was too much to climb through. For now the worm's body was still slightly protecting her from the pressure, but with how she had ruined its skeleton and flesh, This wouldn't last for long, sand was already trickling inside. And Sofia was still upside down, which made things even worse. I can use the exchange position teleport with Irat. But then he would be stuck too. Sofia's mana was quickly being drained by the skull choir still on the surface, at least it was still fighting with terrifying efficiency. Every time she felt them attacking on their own, another worm died. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 249. The next minute felt like it took forever as Sofia was waiting underground. She had used Bone Dominus again to consolidate the bones of the dead worm and make them form a cage around her, helping to alleviate the pressure of the sand. Waiting was now her best option. Waiting until her health was full and her mana emptied by the skulls. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 268. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 247. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 222. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 209. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 255. You gained a level. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 248. Sofia's mana hit 0 and she felt the skulls disappear. There should only be a few worms left. It's a bit of a waste, but I don't see how else I could possibly get out. Sofia activated her demon form, eating the black heart in her underground prison. Another 10 levels of debt. Health, 358 560/358 560. Stamina, 358 560/358 560. Mana, 0/358 560. Piercing straight through 60 meters of sand was no longer an issue. She could even swim through it like water. As she neared the surface, something unexpected happened. The group on the surface had slain one more worm. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 269. Mana, 12/300/358 560. Sofia was still swimming up the sand but she almost opened her mouth to curse as the feeling of mana coursing around her dry veins jolted through her. Not only did her mana not stay at 0, it started climbing back up at the usual pace of about 350 points per second. Heat death can do that. Like the sandworms before her, Sofia burst out of the sand. Her complete vision as an apostle gave her an instantaneous understanding of the battle. Perith was single-handedly holding off 3 worms, while Alith and Irat were dodging 2 each, damage accumulating on both sides. Even Perith had taken a hit, his skeleton a bit charred. He had likely been hit by one of the energy beams. For the first time, Sofia saw the feelers Irat had said to target, some sort of small antennas ending in bulbous balls of purple flesh, hidden under a flap of the worm's skin. She could tell because that was what he was attacking from the ground with his elongated and sharp sword-like shade limbs. Alith looked the worst, not very injured but clearly out of stamina. Her movements were sloppy. Sofia rushed to her side, colliding with the largest of the 2 worms as she activated the 3rd tier of Rune-Forged Overlord. The explosive punch carved a hole right through the worm. Truly an apostle of sorrow. It was dead yet, however, which she fixed by jumping into the hole and touching one of the exposed bones. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 251. The other of the 2 worms that was attacking Alith had been charging a ball of light, and it suddenly changed direction, releasing its energy beam at Sofia. Regret. Chapter 246, Death Star. Using the skill of her demon form that allowed her to take a different decision a few seconds in the past, she disappeared out of the attack's way and reappeared directly in front of the other worm, ready to punch. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 220. In the meantime, both Perith and Irat managed to finish one of theirs, leaving only 3 worms alive. With the 3rd tier of Rune-Forged Overlord active, Sofia could fly despite the monolith environment, but her mana reserves wouldn't hold for long. She flew directly to Irat while the worm on him buried itself. Just as Sofia ran out of mana, being once again stuck at 0, she collided with the half-buried worm. Her hand pierced its skin and she turned the monster's skeleton to dust, killing it on the spot. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 203. Her mana shot up again, absorbing 45% of whatever the worm had left, and she immediately reactivated the runes on her body, allowing her to fly in Perith's direction. Irat and Alith had followed, the whole group collapsed onto the last 2 worms. Perith dropped his weapon and grappled one before it could burrow, which Alith and Irat focused on, while Sofia chased the last one, which had managed to hide underground. Sofia could feel the monster's movements through the sand, she chased it from the surface. It's about to emerge. The worm was going to attack from under her. It seemed to be a common pattern of attack among the sandworms. Let's see it try to swallow me. Sofia in her demon form had access to her bone armor now, which made a lot of difference. Her defense was extremely tough to get through. Right then her mana ran out again. Contrary to her expectation, the worm didn't emerge. What came out of the desert's depth was firstly a concentrated beam of energy which hit her directly. The bone armor was melting under the heat of the attack, and Sofia's skin developed a nice char in the instant before she could move out of the beam. But the truth was, she barely felt it. Health, 312 668/358 560. Stamina, 325 060/358 560. Mana, 0/358 560. That would have killed human me though. If I didn't have mana for heat death, or a rune up. It did manage to damage Perith after all, so that wasn't even the biggest beam these worms can do. Sofia allowed herself to do nothing while the worm was coming back to the surface. The instant it showed its ugly head out of the sand, she rushed in. Using her claws, she sliced off every single one of the feelers. The worm thrashed in the air, but it couldn't throw her off despite its best efforts. Its sensory organs compromised, it fell on the side. Sofia cut up chunks of the worm, preventing it from burrowing until it died exsanguinated. You have defeated adult sandworm, leave 267. One more good skeleton to collect. Sofia sat on the worm's mangled corpse. Only a few seconds before she turned back to a human did she remember the domination map, which she hastily slathered in her demon blood. Her demon form transformation ended and she could only wait in place for her body to recover slowly. She only threw one glance at the map, but it depicted a region she had never heard of, so she decided to worry about it later. It's interesting that the ones to die first while I was underground were the ones I had touched with the rot. All the ones I killed in demon form were free of rot. Honestly, they were kind of weak for their level, weren't they? Or maybe we're a bit too powerful for our level. N/O/vel/b/in.c//om. I don't know. I feel more and more that the level for monsters isn't a very accurate way to compare strength. I could beat a level 299 worm, but Cooley is 299 too, and I would still think if she wants to she can end me before I realize what's happening to me. It took a few minutes for the others to run up to her. The worm had been fleeing and she had chased it quite far. The battle cleanup was nothing special. Besides their skeleton for necromancy, sandworm materials hardly were anything of value. Irat had a lot of compliments to give on Sofia's apostle form, and he apologized profusely about forgetting that worms were a threat in this desert. Counting the last one that she had especially taken care of killing cleanly, a total of 6 skeletons were usable for the Book of Skeletons. Sofia made a page with 1 and a page 5. Sandworms were 100,000 mana each. She also salvaged an additional skull for the skull choir. The worm skulls were originally some kind of collapsible tube. It became very small when summoned through the choir, barely larger than a human skull, to be exact. The bunch of small bone tubes did not even have teeth, they were apparently separate. The tubes were very cute as they floated up in the air, until they started spewing out energy beams. Considerably weaker than the worm's actual beams, but also much better than the human skull's air attacks. They can't sing, though, so not all upsides. Sofia proceeded to create a large and empty bone cone. Due to the lack of ambient mana slowing down her regeneration to only a quarter of what it should be, it took Sofia a good minute to get back up to 100,000 mana, but she was finally able to summon her first giant skeleton. As she watched the 40 and some meters long skeleton form out of the mist, she only had one word come to mind. Magnificent. Solar Sandworm, LV 226. Health, 226,000/226,000. Stamina, 226,000/226,000. Mana, 45,200/45,200. Lifetime, 13,557s/13,560s. She latched the cone inside of the worm's strange interlocking dual rib cages, let everyone in, closed it back up, and the group now had a much faster mode of desert transportation. It can even go underground. They were now headed at full speed toward the elven capital city in the desert, Herzl. The underground ride in the sandworm skeleton was a bit shaky, but much better than walking. At some point, Sofia noticed her mana regeneration going up, and Irat explained that the northern part of the desert was just regular sand. This meant the elven capital should not be too far away. Sitting inside of the bone shuttle, Sofia felt equal parts excitement and dread. This city was older than the system itself, and the diviner might help her find Saria. But he also might not. The inside of the conical shuttle was actually a square room with a bench on two opposite sides. Alith and Irat were on one side, lost in an unending discussion about plants, while Sofia was toying with a ball of bone, sculpting it into many different shapes then back into a ball. It did wonders to calm her down. However, any superfluous feelings were thrown out the window anyway when a fourth person appeared uninvited inside of the worm shuttle, sitting right beside Sofia. The first person to react was Irat, prostrating himself on the ground. What in the holy shit? Son. Perhaps even more than the archangel prompt she had once seen, the result of the identify she instinctively threw at the intruder might have been the scariest thing Sofia had ever witnessed. The meaning of these three characters was very clear. The tall blonde elf which had appeared out of nowhere was a god in the flesh. Her mere presence was radiating so much mana that it was almost suffocating. She was wearing black and gold tight-fitting clothes just like her Saintess did, and she looked almost normal, if not for her pure white and softly glowing left arm. She looked rather joyful as she looked around, observing the three travelers. "Do I look that scary?" she said in a playful voice, giggling as she hid her mouth with her normal hand. "Yes. But where is poker face when I need it? And no. Thank you. For the blessing, and the ritual. It is my pleasure. After all, I had been watching your group since long before." "What? When?" Sun pointed at Alith. "You were the one I had my eyes on. A soul fetched from another world by the deep itself. I was curious enough to give you a blessing. Do you like it?" Alith's blessing, the SSS rank blessing of Phoenix lineage, giving absolute heat immunity that might even allow one to survive were they to be thrown into the Sunday and fetched by the deep. Alith had been too stunned to speak, but being asked a direct question, she answered without thinking, "I love it. I only wish it synergized with my class a bit more." After saying this, she froze with a tense face, realizing she might have committed a grave mistake. But Sun seemed not to be bothered by the impetuous words. In fact, her smile only deepened. "I can fix that if you want. In fact, I came to see you three because I felt a bit playful today, and since you came so close to me, I might as well have a bit of light-hearted fun, shouldn't I? You all owe me at least this much. I love giving out quests, so I've prepared one for each of you. You have to take them." Irat was still prostrate on the floor, yet his voice could be heard. It was oozing dread, shaky, broken. "Q quests. Yes, yes. Smile." Sun exclaimed, pointing her index fingers at her radiant smile. "I even have one just for you. I hope you will give me a better show this time, Vilani Hwaratan of Sorrow. Please, God, no merciful mother, save this wretched apostle." The more Sofia observed Sun's smile, the more she felt like Irat's dread was contagious. So far, Sun had been nothing but helpful, and Sofia had a relatively good opinion of her. "Congratulations! You have received a quest." In the flurry of system windows that appeared at once, one line in particular made Sofia reconsider her opinion on the lively smiling goddess. "Penalty for failure, death." Chapter 247, Rookie Mistake. Sofia read over the whole quest. It was not as bad as she feared. At least she had the choice to reject it. Sun's Ordinance, meet Sun's Oracle in Herzl, defeat all monsters in the Orbital Sun Temple. Rewards, Sun's Divine Essence *5, Gold offering exemption for generosity of Sun. Restrictions, no external help. Time limit, 3 months, time spent in Herzl does not count. Penalty for failure, death. Will you accept? Yes/no. 5 Divine Essences. 5. Can I really refuse this? It would instantly unlock the light forging realm of VVPV. If VPPVs has a third realm and it requires even more essence, then I'll be glad I have those 5. And with quintessential, that's a very big upgrade to my mana perception too. But a 3-month time limit to clear a place of unknown strength and danger, with death as a penalty for failure, can I take that risk? I would assume that she wouldn't give a quest that's impossible to complete. But who knows, maybe she's annoyed that I beat Morn in the Spire. So, you will take them, right? I need to ask. Is it really possible, at my level? Of course. It won't be easy, you know? The difficulty has to be proportional to the rewards. But it's not impossible, the system would never approve that. Yeah right, I don't know how much I can trust the system when it comes to gods. Sorrow was able to just force it to give me a skill, so it's definitely not a guarantee that there is no foul play. What about the others? Alith was also looking at her quest. She didn't think for too long. I accept. Wonderful. I don't know, can I see your quest, Alith? Yet. Sun's Trial of Valor, defeat the plant hydra in the northern flower glades. Rewards, skill fusion ticket, specialization point, free choice. Restrictions, no external help. Time limit, 3 months, time spent in Herzl does not count. Penalty for failure, soul death. That's almost the same. The rewards are crazy too, I get why she accepted. Soul death is a bit scary. I guess it means even my skill wouldn't be able to revive her? It wouldn't be a real penalty otherwise. But can Sun or the system really do that when our souls are protected by the mark of Afinareth? I hope they'll never find out. On the floor, Irat let out a long sigh. I accept as well. After all that pleading and throwing yourself on the ground, you're going to accept when you have the option not to? You're actually shaking. You too? It pains me so, Irat weakly replied, also sharing his quest. Sun's second chance, take the teleporter under Herzl, activate the 8 mirrors in the Basin of Spirits. Rewards, Locket of Lost Souls. n/o/v/b/jn.c//om. Restrictions, no external help. Time limit, 3 months, time spent in Herzl does not count. Penalty for failure, soul death. Locket of Lost Souls? It must be an important item to him if he's accepting even when he looks like that. That leaves only me. Sun stared intently at Sofia, which made it hard to think straight. 5 essences. Fine. I'll do it. Quest accepted. Hooray! Everyone's aboard. Sun happily exclaimed as she stood up. My Saintess is also on a similar mission starting today. I will let you in on a secret, the one who completes their quest first gets a bonus prize. She said with an exaggerated wink. This will be all for me, have fun, everyone. Wait, Sofia started, but Sun interrupted her, bending down and placing a finger on Sofia's mouth. So greedy. I'll indulge you a bit because you all accepted. The girl you're looking for is not involved with any divinity. I won't say more. See you. And let there be night. Sun disappeared. Well. That certainly was an encounter. Not involved with any divinity, That means scripture is not to blame for anything, for once. And it also means the dragon we're searching for is not the dragon Saintess Velour had mentioned. One less. There can't be too many dragons, surely. Say Irat, do you know how many dragons there are? The shadow, at long last, stood up from the floor. Is this really what one ought to think about after what has transpired here? Alith shrugged and answered in Sofia's place, just say you don't know if you don't. I couldn't say, frankly. Perhaps 20, perhaps thousands more. I only know of a few, but there are undoubtedly more. That is not really helping. Oh, here is my quest, by the way. The trio tried to see if they had any information on the quests. It turned out that Irat knew a lot about his own quest. He had heard of the Basin of Spirits, and the locket was apparently a lost relic of sorrow which he had been looking for when he was still alive. As for Alith, the northern flower glades was exactly where she was already headed. This was the breeding grounds of the rare plants she missed for the fabrication of the new stat candies. Only Sofia was completely in the dark about what her quest really entailed. Orbital Sun Temple was a weird name for a place. Was it a sun temple on the moon? If it was, how would she even get there? Even Iwara had never heard of such a place. We have all the time we need to prepare as long as we stay in the Elven capital. Better than nothing. 3 months is still worryingly short though. If we fail, then we can only stay in the city forever to escape the end of the timer. Sofia fiddled with the system's interface for the timer to be displayed in a corner of her vision. Remaining time, 1040 23 hours 41 minutes and 28 seconds. Now that it was there, not staring at it became hard. This was a timer until her death, so it wasn't something she could afford not to look at. She lost herself staring at the seconds go down while the sandworm kept digging forward. She was quite surprised when the timer stopped. Sensing her orders, the sandworm stopped too and slowly made its way to the surface. It seems we're there. Irat nodded, it appears so. I will excuse myself soon, I hope you both will not mind it, I need to procure quite a few things before I attempt the quest. Do what you want, Shadowman, do you need money? Thank you for the offer, Alith, but I shall provide for myself. It will not be an issue. I'll go to the diviner with Sofia I think, then we'll probably get on with our respective quests. I don't really intend to wait, but maybe Sofia would stall to train for a bit? I don't know. Maybe. I don't mind giving up on the bonus reward for fastest completion, but I'm not too sure the elves would be fine with me spending half a year here throwing bolts around trying to replicate what the angel did. Ladies, do not forget to get that dwarven mithril mail melted and reforged. Proper weapons, tools, and armor can only be beneficial. There was that. We can upgrade Alith's commas. I don't really know what I'd do with mithril at this point though. Maybe a shield? My dagger is still holding just fine. Well, do that. Oh, and let's decide on a place to meet up when we're done with the sun quests. There has to be a good inn or two in the elven capital. Yeah, just in case we should also explain to him how our kill communication system works. Good idea. The worm had reached the surface before the end of their talk. Sofia opened the bone capsule they were in, revealing the orange sand of that part of the desert. The sun was setting to the east, painting the sky in a similar orange that seemed to fuse with the desert. Not far to the northwest, the group could see the imposing multi-level design of the elven capital built on an oasis. The stepped pyramid-like city of yellow bricks and verdant trees seemed to float several meters over the oasis water, feeding it with multiple waterfalls. Sofia was mesmerized by the allure of the great city. Where is all that water coming from? And where is it going? Alith added. You should ask the elves, I am certain they will gladly answer you. Look, they are coming to welcome us already. This seems like about 20 guards? Alith looked in the direction Irat was pointing at, they look hostile. Well, we are still standing near a giant undead sandworm. This would not make for the best first impression. Crap, I completely forgot about that. Sofia immediately dispelled the sandworm. Maybe they didn't see it as if. Well. I know they're Saintess. And I have a quest from Sunday. There's no way we would be in any real trouble. How high level can a few guards be anyway? Sofia identified the strongest looking guard as they flew closer. Warrior, LV.300 plus. Ah. Chapter 248, How bad can it be? Sofia had dispelled the sandworm, but then she looked at Irat, who was noticeably an undead shade too. Trying to cover this up was hopeless. She could only get on her best behavior, put on the good girl smile, and hope that elves didn't have any deep-rooted bias against necromancy. At the very least, Morn did not seem to care. Then again, she did not seem to care about much except swords. Seriously. Who gets to level 300 and still works as a guard? Sofia muttered. This guy apparently. I like the armor design. Reminds me of King Henry IV's Armo. Alith noticed the weird reactions of Sofia and Irat. Oh, that's censored isn't it? Never mind anyway, it's nice. Alith had to cut her rambling short either way because the elves landed about 20 meters away. The leader of the guards group, an elf much taller than everyone else present and covered in black plate armor except for the head, was the one to walk up to them. His weapon was still sheathed and his face was neutral, which were encouraging signs. Saintess. Welcome to Herzl. Who is your referrer? The elf's voice was cold like ice. He completely ignored the others, only addressing Sofia, which ticked her off a bit, but now wasn't the time to stir up trouble. Referrer, there's something like that. Son? No, that's a bit of a big claim even if it's not false. Saintess Morning Star. Sofia answered as confidently as she could, which she believed wasn't extremely convincing. She's the one who gave us directions. Sofia looked for any kind of reaction, but the elf was like a statue. He simply turned around, the sigh of which she almost sighed of relief too, but she managed to hold it in. Follow me. Do not stray, the gigantic elf said, casually flying up and away in the direction of the city. Sofia managed to perceive the mana activation of his boots that seemed to be what allowed him to fly. Irat casually disappeared into Sofia's shadow, but Alith was hesitating to change to her ghost form. Sofia understood that. Since they saw the worm anyway, she summoned the book and quickly brought out the single Quetzalcoatlus to serve as a mount for Alith. Then she decided to also get on it, because why wouldn't she? The other 20-odd guards were still a small distance away, staring at them, and they did not react. Sofia identified a few of them as she flew over, they were all above level 100, some even over 200. After Sofia and Alith flew past them, they split up in 3 groups and flew up 2, one standing behind and the other 2 to their sides, but still at a respectable distance. So we're surrounded is what you're trying to show? There is really no need for that when your leader is that strong. At least no one attacked and they do not care about the skeletons. So far so good. Now that I think about it, nobody really ever cared about necromancy since the start. Did it even get me into trouble once? The Empire didn't care, the vampires don't care, Velour obviously does not mind, it seems the elves also have nothing against it. Is it just Scripture's church that hates it or what? I wonder what Saria will think about it. She'd think it's a smart but impractical choice, probably. What would her class be if she could pick? I think some kind of water mage probably. But if the many spears on the islands say anything, what she got is probably nothing like that. Saria the spear warrior? I really can't see it. But then again, if that was her only option, of course she would give it her all. What kind of class did the system give her exactly? I can't wait to find out. Sofia's random thoughts were interrupted by the view of the city from up close. It was impressive but also quite small, all things considered, since it fit over the oasis. Even at sundown, the streets were lit by lightstone and tightly packed with elves of all ages going about their life. Since the city was essentially a kind of big pyramid, there was probably a lot of housing space inside, while the outside streets seemed to be mostly open-air markets, shops, and parks. The elf guard captain didn't fly down, leading the group directly to the second highest level of the pyramid, which unlike the bustling streets of the lower levels, was calm and only occupied by a few guards. They landed in a closed courtyard. Sofia dispelled the bird and Irat showed up again while the last group of guards slowly descended behind them. The tall elf approached them again. We will need our Saintess to come and confirm your identity. That is fine with us. Because the timer is stopped. A few of the guards left the courtyard at that time, taking care to close the door behind themselves, while the level 300+ guard silently kept watch over the group. Sofia found his cold stare a bit unnerving. They sure take a lot of precautions, Alith commented, breaking the silence. Irat stretched a bit, as if being in Sofia's shadow had been an uncomfortable position somehow. Truth be told, he said as he yawned, this is a warmer welcome than I had expected. I have been rougher on trespassers to my empire which weren't such an explosive threat. Irat, you know that ice face guy can hear you, right? Before the atmosphere could get any more awkward, the doors of the courtyard flew open, revealing the strong figure of an elf wearing an open blue shirt and white shorts. The first thought that crossed Sofia's mind was how the bursting musculature of this mountain of an elf would make even Victory's incarnation feel inadequate. Oracle, LV 499. 499. Hey, that's half my quest completed, isn't it? His necklace is even Sun's divine rune. What an unusual bunch. The Oracle exclaimed in a lively tone, you can leave them to me, Rehuk. They are guests of Sun's trials. For the first time the expression of the elf guard changed, his eyes wide open, his gaze shifted from the Oracle to the small group to the Oracle again. So be it, he said to the Oracle, then he addressed Sofia, Irat and Alith again, bowing his head, you have my sympathies. What? The guard elf left, the lower-ranked guards in tow. Sofia heard him mutter something as he left, poor souls. Is it that bad? The guard had all left and the Oracle seemed uncomfortable, do not mind him, aha, let me show you to your quarters, you are free to use them until your quests are completed. I am Sundered Skies, Sun's 4th Oracle. You may call me Sky, or just Oracle like everyone else does. I hope Sun didn't force your hands too much. So I get a room this time? Elven hospitality has evolved, I see. Sun has not forced us, but you should know how meaningless of a statement that is. I wasn't forced last time either, Irat replied, followed by a loud sigh. A repeat taker? You must have met my predecessor, then. You knew and yet you accepted again and even let these 2 young ladies get roped in? The Oracle asked, incredulous. Him too? Should have we all denied the quests? Irat sighed again, they are smart enough to choose for themselves, I hate to admit it but the rewards are worth the pain. At least with the system we no longer have to sign a soul contract. The Oracle's face tensed up at the mention of soul contracts, but he smiled and changed subject. Morn has told me about your case, Saintess, I can show you to old Rahim's divination parlor after I give you the keys to your rooms. N/O/vel/b/in.c//om. Oh. Maybe he can help with that thing. I would be grateful. Speaking of which, there might be something else I could need your help with, if you would be willing to hear me out. And my quest also requires me to meet with you, though it does not specify the reason. May I see the quest? The oracle seemed much more relaxed speaking to Sofia than Irat. He approached, his wooden sandals clapping against the ground were the only sound in the courtyard. Of course. The oracle took a few seconds to read through the system windows. Oh, that's yeah, you would need my help to get there. I will have to reactivate the old transmission system. That thing's been out for longer than I've been the oracle. What was she thinking? I think Sun might have gone a bit too far on this one, both for the task and the reward. 5 essence is a big deal even to Sun, then. Well. I fought against victory in the ranking spire. How much worse can it be? Chapter 249, Countermeasures. Sofia's last statement was met with questioning gazes. It had slipped her mind, but the subject of the ranking spire was entirely censored, so to everyone else, half her sentence had been completely unintelligible. I don't know what it is you fought, Saintess, but the place Sun wants to send you to it is so far away that the system does not reach it, and I personally have requested to explore it but was denied because she deemed it too dangerous. I see. How do I get a refund? I am not so sure I want this quest anymore. You can always just stay in Herzl. Life is good here, the oracle answered, avoiding Sofia's eyes. So even that level 499 guy is saying no refunds. Just what I needed, another death trap. Whoa, I never expected the Sun, of all gods, to be a scammer. Alith's dry words pierced straight through the oracle, whose forced smile was crumbling by the second. It's not, I'm sure she has a reason to do this. Sun is annoying to deal with but not a malevolent god, he defended. Your son's oracle and you still speak about her like that. Yeah, that really paints a great image. I hope you know that we have the means to cause you a lot of trouble too. In fact, it's only a few names away, if you see what I mean. It's nothing deep, really, but the consequences won't simply be annoyance. So I'd like it if you kept your part of the bargain in making the quests not impossible, because that is what we agreed to with your god. Sofia watched, incredulous, as the humongous beast of an elf was taking a step back as Alith took a step forward. The oracle looked like he really wanted to say something back, but after a few seconds of silence, he simply sighed and turned around. Follow me to your rooms. We will deal with this how we can. I believe you can trust Sun, I will hear her out. If she fails to make a convincing argument for the quest, I will contact someone to try to have it voided. This is the best I can offer. Much better. Well, thanks, Alith. I really appreciate it. This. It's nothing, let's go, we still have to find the diviner for your sister. Sofia and Alith followed the oracle, leaving Irat behind in the courtyard. Merciful Mother! What did I just witness? The rooms given to the group were on the third highest level of the city, inside of the pyramid. 3 guest rooms next to each other in a corridor lined with 2 more such rooms. The inside was surprisingly well furnished and decorated following what was probably typical elven interior design, with a lot of green and gold, just like the city itself. The oracle excused himself after giving them a few directions to the diviner and other important facilities of the city, as well as giving Sofia and Irat each a specific time and place to meet him alone tomorrow for their respective quests. As he had said before, Irat quickly left to gather the things he might need, wishing Alith and Sofia good luck and urging them to contact him if they needed help with anything at all. He seemed relatively confident that Sun would not have lied and that the quest should be possible for Sofia. In his experience, Sun's quests were like this, arduous but demonstrably achievable tasks, with a reward one couldn't refuse to rope you in. Of course that didn't mean it never killed anyone, much the opposite. As for why she did this, his personal theory was that she liked to see people suffer, but he wouldn't repeat that in front of an elf. Alith and Sofia set out to the lower city to find the diviner. They found the place he was supposed to be, but they were perplexed, because it looked like any other elven house in the surroundings, just a random door inside of the pyramid. The nameplate on the side only said Rahim's. Sofia knocked on the door. Yes, coming. Nov, L, B/JNN. The door opened to reveal a graying old elf with a warm smile. Mage. That's all I get? He's got to be at a high level. I didn't expect you so soon, come in. Have a seat, Do you want a drink? You expected us? Sofia asked. The old elf was already walking toward the back of the house, entering what seemed to be a kitchen. He looked over his shoulder. I am a diviner, Saintess. I should be protected against divination by VPPV, is he bluffing? Not without suspicion. Sofia and Alith entered the home, closed the door, and each took a seat around a small round table. The elf came back from the kitchen. He placed 3 steaming cups on the table and sat on his own chair, yawning. Drink up, it's just a sweet drink, nothing to fear. Do you know about my prices? No presentation, straight to business. We have been told that it's expensive without more detail. Aha, well. It depends on my mood. My son wasn't too rude, I hope? Your son? Alith asked, puzzled. He's tall, doesn't show emotions, black armor, he described in between sips of his cup. Oh, you mean the giant guard? Rahim took a second look at Alith. You could call him that. Sure can. He was all right. Then what about your prices? Ah, glad he didn't cause too much trouble. My prices for you, let us see. I want son's signature. Excuse me, what? You heard me, the old elf said with a smirk, relaxing in his seat. Sky won't get it for me, and Morningstar is much too unreliable. So you girls are my best bet. I help you find who you seek and you help me in return, is that not a good offer? It's not impossible, maybe. We already met her once. Wouldn't son know that you are asking for this right now? Oh, she knows. None can hide from the sun for long. But knowing and doing are far apart. To her I have no value. Unlike you. We have value to her. She did offer 5 divine essences to get something done. If I stop looking at it like a trap, that is a big value offering. Which is why I accepted in the first place. Then you won't help us unless we get you a writing from a god, is what you're saying? Alith reframed the situation. I never said that. I'll help you. But you'll have to pay later, or at least try to. You don't have to make it so dramatic, Alith. Should I be shocked that he knows her name or think that it's a good sign for a diviner? Can diviners get names? Sofia thought about the proposition. It couldn't hurt to try asking son if she ever met her again. What if we can't get it? The elf shrugged. As long as you try, I will consider the debt paid. Then we have a deal. Should I explain what exactly we are here for, then? No need. I have done my research in advance, since I knew you would come. Did Morn tell him about us? Sofia was still unsure about this whole divination deal. She was holding the steaming cup of beverage that she had yet to try, but her doubts all vanished when the elf opened his mouth again. Let us find the traces of Saria Cellar through the threads of the world's mana. Alith looked at Sofia. Cellar? Old history, this is no longer my name. Nor hers. It is unbecoming to reject one's roots as much as it is to reject one's child, but the point stands. Sofia, I can call you that, right? Do you have anything of your sister in your possession? If not, we will have to use your blood. I do. Sofia said as she took a few strands of blonde hair out of her storage ring. And you can also use my blood if it helps. We shall see. Place the hair on the table. How will that help? Alith asked. There were diviners in her world too, but she had confessed to Sofia that she thought they were all bad actors. It has traces of her mana, Rahim explained. This will help me find her tracks. I did spy her name through the echoes of the world, but that is limited. As for your names, I heard from the Sword Kid. You were hard to lock onto, the both of you. I only found you when you entered the city. One of my passive skills does that. But Alith shouldn't have that. Because of your proximity, it's one and the same. That being said, I am ready, please refrain from using any mana while I work. The old elf bent forward and placed his wrinkled hands over the strands of hair. After he closed his eyes, one by one, complex mana structures formed around the diviner, piling onto each other, endlessly stacking together in complex patterns. The spell structure was complex and layered enough to give Sofia a headache just by looking at it. It grew and grew until the elf recoiled in pain, holding his head, and the structure exploded. The mana collapsed in a wave toward the old elf. He had lost control. Backlash. Sofia hurried to activate her ring. Collapse. Chapter 250, What Rhymes with Dungeons. The Ring of Zar absorbed all the mana in the room, completely preventing the out-of-control mana of Roxam's spell from collapsing back into him. The old elf was likely strong enough not to die from something so simple, but Sofia wouldn't let him suffer if she could help it, especially since she could guess what had gone wrong. Maybe I could have warned him about the dragon. Is everything all right? Roxam didn't answer straight away. He took a few deep breaths to calm himself first. I am all right, thanks to you. This could have been painful, I was careless, I failed to expect such a violent response. Sorry, we knew there might be a dragon involved, but never told you. Well, you have handled the consequences, so that is no issue. In fact, had you told me, things would have likely ended the same way. There is nothing I can do against such a threat. Nevertheless, I found some interesting things, Roxam said with a smile. Is Saria all right? Do you know where she is? Ahaha, calm down, lady. Your sister should be all right. Let me lay out everything I found out. Be aware though, divination is an unreliable practice. Everything I tell you should be true, but details are hard to grasp, and no one can know the future, one can only make educated guesses. Alith and Sofia nodded through the elf's explanations. With this reminder out of the way, here is the full extent of what I have seen. The traces of Saria, past the name and other details I had managed to find about her childhood before you showed up, starts at the southern beaches of Savoln. Not Savoln itself? Sofia asked. No, the environment in Savoln makes it very hard to see through, but because her tracks start there, it can be said that she had never left it from her birth until that point. Alith also had something to ask. Can you give precise dates? No, I can somewhat give an order to things, a chronology, but no time, if that makes sense. Understood. Savoln should be the starting point, yes. That much was obvious. From there, the tracks lead straight south, past the ocean to the southern continent. There, the tracks are much harder to tell apart, which should be the work of the dragon. That being said, Saria has spent a lot of time there. It seems she sometimes explores through the continent, but most of her time is spent in the same mountain chain. In terms of scale, it is about the same as the one separating the human peninsula and the Red Desert. Simply put, the dragon's lair should be in these mountains somewhere, and she stays there. I cannot give a more exact location. You saw what happened when I tried to find that out. So the backlash was the dragon preventing you from finding its position? Precisely. But there shouldn't be many dragons in these mountains, if you see what I mean. So if we go there and find the dragon, Alith thought out loud. Is she a prisoner to the dragon? Let me tell you more first. The tracks expand out to the two first trial towers, as one could expect. She should be at level 249 right now. Her class has something to do with dungeons, although I cannot say more about that. It should definitely be some kind of secret magic class, something which is not unheard of. We have someone here in Herzl whose class is Speedrunner. It is a unique class centered about doing everything as fast as possible. In my opinion, your sister's class is something similar, not in concept but in uniqueness within the system. If she got a class out of the children protection rule of the system, then it being a unique class isn't surprising. Magic though? All I found were spears. Now, concerning your worries that she might be a prisoner, I highly doubt so. As I said, though not much, she does seem to sometimes venture out. And the aura of feelings in the mana was not one typical of a prisoner. Her life seems to be led by determination and sorrow, not the despair and emptiness that long-term prisoners would have. Let alone the fact that her explosive growth indicates that she is being trained one way or another. Sorrow. Yes. Though it is a bit of a stretch of my abilities, I would confidently say that she most likely believes you dead. Assuming you aren't seeking her for some kind of revenge, that is, the elf continued with narrowed eyes. Of course not. As I thought. Well. That's about it. The dragon, I believe, should be rather young, judging by how much I managed to glimpse it before it stopped me. Perhaps it saw in your sister a great potential as a retainer. So she might be a servant of some kind? Kind of like a Saintess then, but for a dragon instead of a god and without a related class. Perhaps, I cannot say anything with certainty, at the very least I believe she does not resent her current condition. But whether she is a servant, a guard, an adoptive child or simply a source of entertainment to the dragon, I would not know. Entertainment? Would Saria accept that? I suppose if she can use it to further her goals she might not mind. But either way, this is another confirmation that she is still alive. Wait for me. Can I go find her? Teleport there somehow? The best way to find your sister now might simply be to go there yourself, yes. Do be aware though, that the dragon now knows someone was spying on it, which could make any approaches dangerous. And the southern continent in general shouldn't be approached by anyone under level 300 or with a similarly powerful escort. The southern wildlife is unforgiving. If there's dragons there I could see that, Alith chimed in. That is a funny thought, but dragons are no wildlife. There is one living on the human peninsula too. Though he rarely comes out. Alcorm? Oh, so you've heard of him. This one indeed. Do you have a world map I can draw on? Sofia summoned her bone map and a bone pen. There you go. Is the thin line your own itinerary? You have been all over the place for someone so young. It is what it is. I will be moving more in the future. A respectable perspective. I value my life in the city, but though I rarely leave, one could say I travel the most, Rahim said with a wink. Now let's see. See that narrow mountain north of the spirit forest? You even have it correctly marked outside of every neighboring nation's borders. That is Alcorm's Peak. He circled the mountain on the map as he explained. After which, he took the pen to the bottom of the bone slate and started scratching the border of the southern continent. In the middle of it, he drew a mountain chain and circled it. This is where you want to search. Counting the valleys around, it's about the size of the human peninsula. The southern continent as a whole is quite large. I do not even know of its boundaries. Can you not use your divination to find out? Alith asked. N/O/vel/b//jn.c//om. Not if I stay in Herzl, my range is wide but limited. And many a natural obstacles blocks the path. The Western Sea, Savoln, the Spirit Forest, as many dead zones I cannot go through. Wait, if you cannot see into Savoln at all, how did you find out about our name? Secrets of the trade, young girl. Ahaha. The conversation did not last for long after that. Sofia was lost in thoughts, imagining 1,000 scenarios of what might have happened to Saria exactly and how she might be now. What might her goals be? Why was she trying so hard to become strong? How would she react when she found out that her younger sister is alive? In the end, Sofia returned to her room for the day. She was too out of it to do anything else. The next day, Sofia and Alith spent the entire morning wandering around the elven city searching for a smith willing and able to handle the mithril chainmail fast. Just finding a weaponsmith in the tightly packed pyramidal city was a challenge in and of itself, especially since the guards and the oracle were the only ones allowed to fly in Herzl. Eventually they did find a level 260 weaponsmith who accepted to work on a tight deadline for a fee of 10% of the mithril. The heavy chainmail was molten and reforged into 2 new for Alith, this time with fully mithril handles and blades, as well as a longer dagger and a shield for Sofia. With heat death for magical attacks and a mithril kite shield for physical attacks, Sofia really felt that it would be hard for someone not faster than her to get to touch her at all. When Sofia had explained to the smith what happened to her hand while she cast her bolts and whether he had any idea of what kind of armor could offset that, he had asked to test the toughness of her current armor. Past the moment of fascination at the design of the bone armor, he gave Sofia's hand a few hits of his mithril hammer after leaving it in his furnace until it was glowing hot. Well shit. Can't help you with that, miss. What you want isn't a good smith, it's rare materials. Maybe I could do something for you if you brought a kilogram of mithrium or a dragon scale. A dragon scale? A dragon scale. Well, now I know the location of 2 dragons, so I'll think about it. Thanks for the advice. The smith had already shown a strong reaction when 2 young humans had strolled into his shop with several kilograms of mithril, but now the incredulous looks on his and his apprentices' faces were truly priceless.